Snow exploded beneath pounding hooves as a lone man tore across the endless white wasteland, his breath ragged in the frigid air. Behind him, 3 pursuers followed without pause. Relentless, silent, merciless. A sharp whip cut through the wind. An arrow struck his thigh, embedding deep. A fine string of crimson marked its entry point. The man cried out and crashed into the snow, rolling hard, limbs flailing in the ice. He tried to rise, hands clawing at the ground, but his strength was fading, and the hunters were nearly upon him. Ragil, senior ranger of the Algor kingdom, slowed his horse, narrowing his eyes as he dismounted. For 3 days, they had hunted this man across the frozen northern frontier. And for 3 days, the fugitive had fled with the desperate speed of a ranger himself, barely resting, always just beyond reach. But now the chase was over. Without a word, Ragil drew his longsword. The steel hissed against the scabbard, a sound that heralded only one thing. A moment later, the snow drank deep of blood. The fugitive's head tumbled to the ground, eyes still open, mouth parted as if to offer one final word that never came. Red on white, a chilling contrast beneath the twilight sky. Ragil wiped his blade clean with the hem of his cloak and gestured forward. "Search him." The 2 rangers moved in. They rifled through the corpse's pockets with the precision of men who had done this many times before. What they found was strange: a woman's dried, shriveled hand, a fragment of blue-tinted glass, a pouch of coins. Ragil pocketed the glass and the money without comment. He spared not a glance at the hand. "We're done here. Let's return." "Yes, sir." The rangers turned away, leaving the body behind in the snowdrifts. Soon, only silence remained. And then something stirred. As the sun slipped below the horizon and the frost-bitten wind howled over the wastes, the desolate stillness was broken. The severed hand, the mummified remnant of a woman long dead, twitched. Then impossibly it began to crawl. It scaled the lifeless chest, reached the stump where the neck had ended, and began to shake the body, not gently, but with urgency, as if rousing a sleeper. A low voice whispered, echoing from nowhere, "Don't be upset, mother of corruption." The body moved. Joints cracked as the headless form rose, swaying for a moment before finding balance. Snow fell from its shoulders. One hand reached into the cloak and carefully removed the desiccated hand from its throat, placing it reverently into an inner pocket. "I had to die here. Just once." The corpse bent down, lifted its own severed head from the snow, and placed it atop the bloodied neck stump. Flesh knit, veins reconnected, eyes blinked. With a sharp breath, the man, no longer a fugitive, but something far worse, stood fully whole once more. Marnak, the priest of corruption, smiled. "If it's the relic's divinity they're chasing, let them rest easy," he said softly, as though speaking to a lover hidden in the wind. "You've already claimed it back, haven't you?" He looked toward the blackening horizon where his pursuers had vanished. No reason for them to follow us now. And with that, Marnak turned and disappeared into the dark, the snow swallowing his trail, as if he had never been there at all. Life is an egg, a boiled egg, to be precise. Hard on the outside, bland on the inside, and utterly meaningless when you think about it too long. That's what life feels like, especially for someone like me. Someone who tried to live kindly until the end and still fell into a damned video game. Let me start with a confession. Yes, I used an editor to modify my save file. I know, it's shameful, a betrayal of everything sacred to real gamers. But before you pass judgment, hear me out. It was a single-player game, one of those massive open-world RPGs boasting limitless freedom and endless job paths. I can't even remember the game's name now, but at the time, I was excited enough to buy it for one reason: the Priest of Corruption, a forbidden class. Unpopular, weak, virtually no one picked it. Naturally, I had to have it, but I didn't have the time to grind through dozens of quests and days of tedious material hunting. I was in my late 20s, working long hours, barely keeping my hobbies alive. So I compromised. I used an editor to move my character to the right place, collect the necessary materials, and unlock the class I wanted. Nothing more. No God mode. No infinite money. No maxed out stats. And that is my deepest regret. Because the moment I completed the job change quest, the screen froze. My mouse wouldn't move. The audio warped. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I wasn't at my desk anymore. I was in the game, and I had become the priest of corruption. The first thing I noticed was the weight in my pocket, something dry, brittle, and moving. It was a woman's shriveled hand, twitching with unnatural life. Then a voice, not spoken, but hammered directly into my mind like a drumbeat of madness. Kill, 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 kill. That was the mother of corruption. At least, that's what I've come to call her. She didn't speak until I stole the first holy relic. Before that, she simply gestured, expressed her divine will through the flailing motions of a dead woman's hand. Subtle, right? It took me 5 years to find that first relic. 5 years since I woke up in this world with nothing but a standard-issue priest uniform and a cursed hand in my pocket. The relic's divinity awakened something inside me, or rather, something inside her. From that moment on, she could speak, loudly and constantly. But here's the thing. Despite her obsession with violence, she's the only one I can trust. I'm the sole priest of a forgotten goddess, scorned by every faith in this world. If not her, then who? Becoming a priest of corruption wasn't just a class change. It was a transformation. My body was altered, chemically enhanced in a way only possible in a dark fantasy world. My senses were sharper, my strength far beyond human. And the greatest benefit? I couldn't be killed by anything that lacked divinity. That's how I survived when the Rangers took my head earlier. I simply put it back on. Easy fix, but came at a cost. My emotions have dulled, especially the ones that matter. Fear, empathy, joy. I don't flinch at blood anymore, and cruelty doesn't sting like it used to. That's not the worst part, though. I can't taste food. Not a single flavor. Grilled pork belly wrapped in kimchi, fried rice with a golden crust, cold black bean noodles. Nothing. It's like chewing paper soaked in ash. It's hell. Kill. Her voice brought me back to the present. I trudged across the snowfield, the frozen winds lashing my face. My body, inhuman and tireless, pressed forward without complaint. I know. We'll move soon, I muttered. But the next relic won't just walk into our hands. We need to wait for the Rangers to lose the trail. She didn't answer. Not with words. The hand twitched again in my pocket, a silent tantrum from my divine walkie-talkie. Despite her attitude, I found comfort in her presence. She was, after all, the only voice I had in this world. And even if she was obsessed with carnage, she never lied. As night fell, the wind grew worse. The blizzard came like a curtain drawn across the world, and even I needed shelter. I found it in the form of a cave, half buried in snow. But I wasn't alone. 2 glowing eyes blinked from within. A bear, massive, mottled fur like patchwork snow, easily the size of a house. Kill. I'm not fighting, Mother, I replied calmly, sitting at the entrance. He's neutral, remember? Unless I strike first, he won't attack. In this world, monsters and beasts sense the corruption within me. They avoid it, or at least respect it. It's the humans that can't feel it. They're the real danger. I closed my eyes. A familiar screen flickered into view. Divinity. 1623. That was it. My only stat. No health. No stamina. Just divinity, the currency of my goddess. 10,000 for 1 power. Like a vending machine. You feed it faith and it spits out something useful or terrifying. I had only 1 power so far, but it was enough to draw attention. The wrong kind. Lying against the cave wall. I thought about how ridiculous it all was. How did I end up here? In another world, with a dead hand, whispering kill, surviving on divinity and lies? I held the hand closer to my chest. It twitched again, but gently this time. I'm not depressed, I whispered. Don't worry. 13 relics. That's what I need. 13 vessels of divine power. I've taken 1. 12 remain. And once I gather them all, the mother of corruption will grant my wish. No, not immortality. Not power. Taste. I want to taste food again. As dawn broke, I entered the city of guys. My priest robes were covered in frost, but I wore them with dignity. Guard blocked my path. Stop there. Show your ID. I gave them a warm smile. May peace shine upon your hearths, I said. I lost my car during a difficult journey. The captain narrowed his eyes. Which church do you serve? The goddess of maintenance, I answered, who protects the sanctity of daily life. Lying about a god's name is a grave offense. Normally, a real priest would be struck by divine stigma. But I am protected. The mother of corruption tolerates lies. She rewards them. The guard gave a short nod. Welcome to Guy's, priest. Get your ID reissued inside. I'll keep that in mind, I said with a bow. Kill. I smiled faintly. Even gods can be fooled, if you serve the right one. And so, cloaked in snow, pretending to follow a god I had never met, I entered the city. Alone, but never truly alone.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
30 silver coins for 2 parties. Neatly tied red hair and freckles set shyly against white skin. Guy's mercenary guild receptionist was a young girl. Was this because this world came from a game? Or was it because Guy's security was stable enough? Or was it because the mercenary guild was in a position of absolute superiority to the mercenaries? What's your name, priest? I clear my mind. What should I say? Writing the name I had been using until now would bring too much attention, telling everyone I was here and alive. Marnak. My name is Marnak. Marnak. That was the name I wanted to give to this character when I first created him. The receptionist went through the paperwork with a pen in hand. It was mainly a description of my appearance and information about the god I worshipped. After a while, the receptionist looked up with a friendly smile, and she looked pretty beautiful like this. Yes, Priest Marnak. Can you wait here for a moment? It will take some time to make the bronze mercenary plaque. I smiled brightly. I can wait as long as you need. The receptionist got up from her seat and walked upstairs with the documents. No matter how you looked at it, she was a beauty. There were many strangely beautiful people in this world. Was it because this was a game world? Kill. I'm not in love with her, mother of corruption. I just thought she was beautiful. Kill. I patted the wriggling hand of the goddess and asked in a low voice. By the way, how many fingers was the receptionist just now? In my chest pocket, a dry hand stretched out 2 fingers. 2 fingers. Then I'm sure she's a bit of a pushover, or a fairly high-ranking person. What the mother of corruption's outstretched fingers meant was very simple. 1 finger was 10 divinity. 2 fingers was 100. 3 fingers was 1,000. And 4 fingers was a 10,000 divinity. 5 fingers meant 100,000 divinity. As the priest of corruption, the way I obtained divinity was very simple and intuitive. It was to reap the soul from the corpse of an intelligent being. For example, if I killed that 2-finger receptionist now and sent her to the mother of corruption, I could get 100 divinity right away. But it would be quite annoying to take care of the aftermath. However, this simple divinity acquisition system was quite generous, as I didn't have to kill the opponent myself. As long as they hadn't been dead for a long time, it could be sent back to the mother of corruption for divinity. When I first found out about this, I found work near the cemetery for a while. But unfortunately, I wasn't a necromancer, and the bodies coming to the cemetery had been dead for too long for me to harvest. Priest Marnak, here's your ID. Before I knew it, the red-haired receptionist smiled kindly and gave me a bronze plaque as she returned. I carefully accepted the card and smiled as reverently as possible. Thank you. Do you have any suitable work for me? Yes. Since I was impersonating a priest, there were many ways for me to obtain an ID. Nevertheless, there was only one reason I came to the Mercenary Guild. It was because I didn't have a penny now. No matter how bad the taste was and how long I could starve myself, it wasn't okay to starve forever. Wait a minute. The receptionist rummaged through the pile of papers. There is something that a priest who serves the goddess of maintenance could do. The receptionist scrambled through the documents with deft hands. We don't have much work in a mercenary guild these days because it's the middle of winter. Did you run out of money during your pilgrimage to find a mercenary job? Yes, that's right. A pilgrimage. This game was made under the motto of having the freedom to choose, So many gods were involved in the continent. Thanks to this, each religion always struggled with missionary work, and the representative action to solve that was the pilgrimage. The pilgrimage meant that priests with a certain level of skill traveled around the world, giving people the power of God and carrying out missionary work. Of course, since priests were also humans, it was quite a common sight to help mercenaries to earn some coins when they ran out of money. Oh, here it is. This is it, Priest Marnak. I took the paper and quickly read the text. The receptionist smiled broadly. As expected, it's convenient that you're a priest. It's common to read them word by word for other mercenaries. It was an announcement from the Lord of Guise. The goal was to defeat bandits and monsters, a mission that had come down due to a subtle increase in the number of missing peasants on the way to Guise. If the success pay was as written on this paper, after reconnaissance, if we succeeded in eradicating the cause, it was about 30 silver coins for 2 parties. Even if I couldn't find anything and returned empty-handed, they would give me a silver coin. The conditions weren't bad. I quickly thumbed through the documents to get a rough idea of the situation and humbly answered the receptionist. Not being able to read is probably because not everyone gets the chance to learn. It's not really a special talent. I was already able to read and write the letters of this world the moment I fell in. There was no need to study separately. By the way, when does this job start? You came just at the right time. They are leaving tomorrow. The reason this receptionist was strangely friendly towards me was that I was a priest. In this world, priests were an intellectual class, and since they were priests, a minimum level of education was guaranteed. They all had different kinds of powers. Because of that, people were usually as polite as they could be in dealing with priests. A class of both strength and knowledge. That was the priest. The problem was that I was a priest of corruption that the entirety of priests hated. I smiled as friendly as possible to the receptionist and spoke carefully. Would I be able to receive a portion of the reward in advance? I really didn't have a penny to my name right now. I was finally able to get a silver coin in advance after hearing from the receptionist that even the priest should pay the penalty if he were late for his departure tomorrow. She was a pretty talkative receptionist, Mother. Kill. I'm not going to kill her, Mother. She might be a bit talkative, but why would you want to kill her? Kill. I'm not in love with her. If you keep pushing me like that, I'll get mad. Waddling Rabbit. The name was to the cheap inn I was staying at. After paying the room price, including meals for 10 coppers, I now had only 90 coppers left in my pockets. I'm poor. I ate the stew with a spoon, not knowing what was in it. There was also no taste whatsoever, and I stared at the liquid. It didn't look very appetizing to see all the ingredients floating around. Yeah, if I had my sense of taste, I might not have been able to swallow this stew because it was so bad. I looked around over the stew. Groups of people gathered here and there, talking. On the other hand, I was alone. The moment I was about to cry a little. Kill. As if to say I wasn't alone, a voice resounded in my head. Don't worry, Mother. Your son has a strong heart. I was thinking about getting a decent weapon if I got paid this time. After finishing the stew, I left the bowl and went to the room. Since I paid more, my room was a private one. Lying on the hard bed, I tried to sleep. In the morning, I arrived at the borders of Guise, the place that the receptionist lady repeatedly emphasized. Maybe it was because the sun wasn't up yet, but I was the first to arrive at our gathering place. It was also thanks to my body that I didn't need to sleep that much. Kill. I came early, Mother. Isn't it too early to kill everyone? As I was talking with the Mother of Corruption, people gathered one by one. An official from the castle called each person's name to check his or her mercenary plaque and attendance. As I saw my name being crossed with a line, I slowly stepped back and looked at the person in charge of this mission. The name of the middle-aged man, a silver-plate mercenary, was Gallet. He was wearing thick fur over his armor. His old-fashioned look went well with the fur coat, and by the way, he was conversing with the official in a friendly manner. He seemed to have worked for a long time. When the official left, Gallet was the first to come up to me and smile. Aren't you cold, priest? My outfit was just a white priest suit. For me, who was a reinforced human being, this cold was nothing. And I didn't have the money to buy fur clothes. I'm fine. It seems that even the cold cannot penetrate the noble spirits of a priest. Gallet seemed very satisfied with the word noble after he used it. Then he cautiously asked, I heard you serve the goddess of maintenance. Do you mind if I ask what power you can use? What he expected from me was very simple. I can maintain the condition of an injury to prevent it from deteriorating. Galad laughed with satisfaction, a brief look of relief crossing his face that his expectation was right. As expected, you have the power of a priest who serves the maintenance goddess. To be precise, it was a simple ability to delay the decay and deterioration of wounds. Still, the results were similar anyway, so there would be no difference for Galad. Galad spoke to each and every member of his party in turn. The total number of people gathered was 10. I spoke with the mother of corruption while Galad was catching up with people. How many fingers does everyone have? The result was normal. That Galad was a finger and a half. The rest were from half to one. Half a finger meant the probability of growing to the next number. There was no additional divinity payment at the time of harvest, however. In other words, the amount of divinity to be gained by killing and harvesting a finger and a half or a finger immediately was the same. There was no one special. After carefully checking all the personnel, Galad sent the signal to depart. That was how the two parties' 30 silver mission started. Rational judgment. The group made their way through the snow that fell the previous day, accompanied by the sound of their crunching footsteps. My position was somewhere in the middle of the group. Thanks to Galad's consideration, I wasn't standing at the front or back of the formation. Of the 10 mercenaries gathered, 6, including Galad, were personally brought by him. They were a new mercenary group with a total of 6 members. They said their name, but it didn't seem noteworthy, so I already forgot. Priest Marnak. Clear eyes, innocent-looking face, but a build that didn't match it. A man who was somewhere between a boy and a young man. He was the youngest member of their mercenary group that Galad had assigned me for any errands I had. I answered with a kind smile. Yes. Did he say his name was Pierre? He was born in a village near Guise. Galad, who recognized Pierre's innate abilities, had a good deal with his family and paid a great price for his enlistment. How did I know about this? I'm sure you're from somewhere other than Guise. Can you tell me what the scenery is like there? If you go down this road, you'll see the village where I used to live, but I'm not sure if my mom and dad are doing well. Of course, thanks to the generosity of Mr. Galad. I'm sure they'll have a good winter, but what's this feeling that makes me a little worried? Pierre was talkative. He wanted to tell me a story I wasn't even curious about, searching for an excuse to talk more. They weren't trying to be considerate of me, but just wanted to keep this chatterbox away. Right? You know what? Priest. Now, without even asking me a question, he began to tell his story. The way he whispered to me, with a seemingly solemn expression, was funny since it didn't match his innocent face. What? Pierre glanced at Galad and whispered. Actually, it's rumored that it isn't people or monsters making the farmers walking this road disappear, but ghosts. In this world, the term ghost was used in a slightly different sense from a monster with a mass of negative energy. Although the image wasn't very different from the ghosts we knew in our world. Ghosts? Yes, a ghost. I quietly grinned. If the culprit is a ghost, it would be very difficult. Pierre looked at me with twinkling eyes. Why? Was he expecting a story about magical powers? I'm sorry, but that's not what I meant. If the culprit is a ghost, everything will probably be in vain, and then we won't get paid for our success. It became difficult. If there was no success reward, the reward was 1 silver coin. It was the same amount of money I got paid yesterday after a scolding from the receptionist lady. This was the same as saying that my 90 copper situation would not improve. It was really difficult. Pierre looked at me, slightly disappointed, as if he was expecting something great. I think it will be difficult to get paid if the culprit is a ghost. By the way, does Mr. Galad think the culprit is a ghost? As if waiting for my question, Pierre glanced around with that gigantic build, then whispered to me in a low voice. Actually, I don't think Captain Galad thinks he's going to catch the killer. When I heard him talk to the others before going to bed last night, he said he was just taking on the job because he didn't have any work. He's not even sure if there's a culprit really harming passersby in the first place. With diaresis nues. So my pocket situation wouldn't get any better after all. It was discouraging. Pierre continued to say what he wanted, not interested in what I was thinking. It was kind of like walking with the radio on. Really, Captain Galad always complained that there's no work these days because the great Lord Threaten is taking care of guys so well that there are no longer any problems. But thanks to him hiring us, our mercenary group has been paid more this month than those in the mercenary guild or labor office. The laborer's office was an institution under the direct control of the Lord. When the Lord needed manpower, he arranged for a job in return for a reasonable price. This system, similar to a modern employment office, was originally a place for the players of jobs that had difficulties hunting in the early game to find work. In the end, should I work as a laborer, not a mercenary? The mercenary was much better, in my opinion. It was about killing brothers in arms, backstabbing, getting rich, and collecting divinity if I collected it from the corpses that inevitably piled up in the process of killing. But isn't someone with a lot of natural talent like Mr. Pierre excellent at such a job? At my use of honorifics, Pierre laughed awkwardly. The only person here who doesn't speak informally to me is Mr. Marnak. I don't mind if you talk to me comfortably. I'm comfortable with this. Kindness was a useful tool unless the opponent ignored me. Having a good image was advantageous in more ways than I first thought, especially in getting on someone's good side. If that's the case, then I have nothing to say. Pierre, I guess I'll have to go for a while. I'll be back soon. Pierre bowed to me as Galad called from afar and headed across the snowy road to meet him at the front. As Pierre, who had been chatting beside me from morning till afternoon, disappeared, only my slow breathing and the beating of my heart kept me company. Kill. Mother, why do you keep telling me to kill them all? If they all die, I'll be in big trouble. You don't have anything to say when we return to guys, do you? 30 silver coins. No, one was paid in advance, so the reward is 29 silver. Your son desperately needs these 29 silver coins. I want to spend this winter in warmth. Kill. With a slightly drooping voice, the mother of corruption was easily convinced and stepped down. Our corrupt mother had no knack for making money. I tapped her hand in my pocket. I think I was a little harsh. Poverty must have eaten a little of my bright reasoning. Don't be so discouraged by this stupid son's words. Actually, I don't mind staying a little cold, and it'll be warm on its own when spring comes. Kill. The mother of corruption was quick to express her feelings. It was starting to get dark. Seeing Galad rushing the group up ahead, it seemed that there was a little distance left until we reached the campsite chosen in advance. Pierre, who returned from Galad's side, remained silent, and I smiled at him. What did you hear? Pierre, who glanced at me, hesitated and said, I've heard from the captain not to bother the priest too much. He said it must have been annoying to chat at you from morning till night. It was definitely a little bothersome, but it was still better to have a chatty radio than not having one. I'm really fine. Don't worry. Pierre's face lit up. He reminded me of a baby bear smiling. Really? Yes. A sudden wind swept past. Something caught my perceptive senses. I pushed Pierre down reflexively. Puck! 2 arrows bristled from my stomach and shoulder. The culprit making travelers disappear was not a ghost, but a human. Was it bandits? Priest. Are you all right? Our arrows. I calmly assessed the situation. Galad, who was walking in front of me, was already lying on the floor with 1 arrow in his head. Among the group of 10, 5 of them had been hit. This was a frighteningly sharp aiming skill, and too sharp to be a surprise attack from a single bandit. Kill. The mother of corruption wanted me to pretend to be dead on the floor after being shot. Surely that was a rational decision. Now that it wasn't clear how many enemies there were, it was right to wait until the enemies showed themselves before doing anything. I glanced behind me. Pierre was shivering despite his size. Apparently, it was his first fighting experience. If I pretended to be dead here, I was sure everyone else would die. Kill. I know, Mother. I know very well what the benefits are. This was a game. This world itself was a game. They were just NPCs and IA player. But you know what, Mother? With 2 arrows stuck in my body, I stood up. I pulled a sword from the waist of the nearest body and jumped forward with a shout. This is how I do things. I swung the sword, and blood splattered. A thief's head, hiding in dark clothes nearby, fell to the floor. The enemy wasn't one. I looked around, my eyes penetrating the darkness to find the next foe. Yeah, I used to play games like this, keeping what I wanted to protect close, because games are all about doing what you want. Belker was a ranger deserter. He could not adapt to the hard, discipline-filled ranger life, so he deserted. He managed to escape his pursuers and hid in a mountain village. There, Belker trained a few like-minded bastards to form a bandit group. A bandit group based on ranger training was a natural disaster that farmers could never escape. Belker systematically raided only suitable groups of farmers and collected their wealth. If you tried to steal a lot in a short time like some bold bandits, you'd soon lose your neck. However, as their theft continued, the Lord eventually gathered mercenaries and began to pursue him. Finally, it was time to make a big fuss and relocate the base. Belker chose the mercenaries sent by the Lord as his last prey before leaving. It was far more profitable for him to sell the goods from those mercenaries than robbing more peasants. Even if he preemptively ambushed them, the 7 men he raised would not lose to only 10 mercenaries. That was what he thought. Everything went as planned. The sun slowly set, and the mercenaries were relaxed, moving in a long line. Holding his breath, he sent a quiet firing signal to his men, who were ready to bite into their prey's throat. The surprise attack was very successful. 5 out of 10 people were shot down with arrows. The supposed leader died immediately, and the mercenaries had yet to locate him. The problem emerged as a beast in the form of a priest. The mad priest pulled a sword from a corpse and then rushed to one of his hiding men, chopping his head off. Belker cursed involuntarily as he watched the berserk figure charge into his ranks. Crazy bastard. Instinctive fear. He was coming. Because of the words of abuse that he uttered without even realizing it, the priest was running precisely toward him. Belker screamed as all his nerves stood on edge. "I'll take care of that priest for now. You guys clean up the rest of the mess and help me." Of course, there was no answer because he taught them like that himself. Belker calmly pulled an arrow and fired at the priest, and he hoped to deal some more damage before facing each other in person. The priest, who already had 2 arrows stuck in his body, calmly swung his sword and deflected the arrow. Belker had a hunch it wouldn't be so easy to stall for time. Fuck. Belker drew the long sword he was wearing around his waist. A sword made of frost steel, a specialty of the Northern Kingdom, was the most precious of the items he brought with him when he deserted. Clang! The first collision was heavy, so much that he wondered if he really collided with a sword wielded by a human. But Belker was no ordinary man either. If he were an ordinary man, he would currently be rolling on the cold prison floor after being captured by the Northern Kingdom's rangers. No, he was a man who carried the term genius for a long time. Their swords repeatedly clashed with sparks jumping around. Fortunately for Belker, it seemed this opponent wasn't that good at swordsmanship, but was relying on raw physical ability. Belker's judgment was correct. It was a little less than 3 years since Marnak started learning swordsmanship properly. Being a priest of corruption, he had to learn swordsmanship from the basics, of course, without anyone correcting his mistakes. "I have to stall for time." Marnak bit his lip. This opponent was uncharacteristically outstanding. Inside, he lamented that the game balancing was a mess and shouted out loud. "How many?" Belker couldn't understand what the priest was asking for. Asking how many out of the blue. Their swords collided and sparked again. What kind of nonsense is this? Marnak didn't answer, because he didn't ask Belker in the first place. The dried hand in his pockets stretched out 2.5 fingers. 2.5 fingers. With that many, it was the same as the most skilled ranger who chased Marnak before. A thief on the same level as that ranger captain. Shouldn't bandits be low-level mobs? Marnak mentally grumbled and rushed forward. He wanted to kill that thief, even at the risk of a little damage. As time dragged on here, he would be at a disadvantage. He wouldn't die from attacks without divinity, but that wasn't to say he couldn't be incapacitated. If a limb was cut off, it would get quite difficult, and it didn't mean it would be impossible, though. Belker noticed with his extraordinary senses that the priest had made up his mind. But it was fine. He could earn some time, and their preparations were already over. Marnak, narrowing the distance, swung his sword as hard as possible to show an opening. All his injuries would regenerate after some time, so he wanted to attract the enemy's attention ready to lose a bone to take flesh. This was Marnak's strategy. Belker didn't attack at Marnak's gap. He just calmly struck Marnak's sword, but the result was unexpected. The sword, broken in half, flew through the air and fell in the pure white snow. Ha! That's why I use frost steel. This was why Belker had been relentlessly attacking Marnak's blade. How could a sword made of such cheap iron beat his sword that a master craftsman smelted from frost steel? Marnak, caught by surprise, sighed. Oh, the difference in equipment. Belker pointed the tip of his sword at the priest. You don't seem to have anything, but I'll let you go. We're leaving the area after this. So why don't we stop fighting and say goodbye? If that priest ran away without looking back, he wasn't confident he could catch up. Marnak smirked at Belker's polite suggestion. I'd like to suggest something too. Quit being a bandit here and leave immediately. Then I'll let you off the hook just this time. Are you serious about that? Do you really think we're going to say yes? That's not. Puck. An arrow hit Marnak's head. With such a clean hit, Belker couldn't stop himself from laughing like a mischievous boy. You're late, you bastards. I thought I was going to die. The man who released the arrow grinned. Don't be so dramatic. I saw you break that sword in half. Hey, I didn't do that by chance. Every cut was made with careful calculations in mind. Yes. As expected, the leader is the best. It's been a day or two since I last showed off. By the way, did you kill them? Yes, I killed all of them. Not one of them escaped. Did you really kill them all? Marnak asked gently, pulling out the arrow stuck in his head. Belker and his men's faces hardened. Why are you all so surprised? Like you've never seen anyone stay alive after being shot in the head. Belker wanted to scream, because it's the first time I've seen it. But Marnak continued slowly. I want you to answer my question. Did you really kill them all? The face of the priest who asked the question was as serene as ever. Belker gulped and answered. Yeah, priest. Everyone else is dead. So why don't we just go our separate ways? I've already given you the chance to go our own ways. You answered me with an arrow to the head. Marnak knelt on one knee and slowly put his hands together. Dear Mother of Corruption, your son is in trouble. I'm so embarrassed and scared that I don't know what to do. Don't you think it's time for you to try your best if you've been watching too? He recited a rough prayer as he knelt. If other priests had heard the almost playful prayer, they'd call it blasphemy. However, a prayer was good as long as some sincerely offered it and those who accepted it. Marnak wished, and the Mother of Corruption agreed. A dark green light flashed in Marnak's eyes as they opened. Belker realized that something was wrong. Hey, shoot everyone. Shoot. Don't just stare blankly, you bastards. Marnak quickly became a hedgehog, bristling with arrows. At the same time, a green light lashed out at the earth, drawing a huge circle around them. Belker gave the best order for their current situation with extraordinary perception. Hey, retreat now. Run, you bastards. The bandits rushing through the snow soon hit an invisible wall. I can't get past it. Captain, there's a wall we can't see. I know, you bastards. What stood in their way was the line that the living cannot cross, a basic skill that the priest of corruption learned when changing jobs. It was a skill they must use in case of any unforeseen circumstances before exercising their power, preventing the living from escaping and hiding from the divinity of corruption. Marnak, who had become a hedgehog, slowly opened his mouth. If you want to cross that border, either kill me or break my heart. Or are you just going to commit suicide? Belker clenched his teeth, drew his sword, and shouted. Hey, everybody, take your swords up. No matter what a monster he is, he'll die if cut into pieces. Don't you think so? That's right. If we cut him into pieces, he'll die. Emboldened by their groundless confidence, the bandits drew their swords as one. Marnak replied casually, pulling out the arrows one by one. Your opponent is not me, but the one who is coming now. That's nothing, dash. Thud. The air was torn apart, and a giant creature fell through. 4 huge arms, a head with only a mouth stretched over a featureless face, and a muscular body. The giant slowly decayed and, simultaneously, gained new flesh in an infinite cycle of torment. Finally, the giant's mouth opened wide to let out a scream. Gah! The first power obtained by Marnak for devoting 10,000 divinity from the first holy object. The giant of corruption came to earth in response to his mother's call, just in time for Marnak to pull out the last arrow from his head. You can do whatever you want. Gaha! Its roar reverberated in the brain and seemed to forcefully pull out everything that was deep inside a person. Belker's instincts screamed for help. Shit. Crack. Those were Belker's last words before he was crushed by the corrupted giant. Oh, save me, priest. Please save me. The sounds of tearing flesh and agonized screams could be heard. Marnak watched the slaughter with a sense of calm. He grinned as he slowly tapped the mother's hand in his pocket. It's the first time I've called that giant friend out, making my heart pound. I really like this power, mother. Gah! The giant screamed goodbye and disappeared as quickly as it appeared. Asterisk. Kill. Yes, yes. This time, I killed all my enemies as mother wished, and my companions are all dead. I stepped up to save them, but failed. While I was organizing the corpses of the party in one corner, I searched one by one to retrieve their mercenary plaques. Kill. You want me to retrieve the divinity from the corpses right now? I can't do that. Mother, if I retrieve their divinity, the body will decompose and disappear. Then I'm sure the mercenary guilds who will come to investigate the scene will find this situation strange. As you know, it's time for me to act cautiously. Kill. I've heard your argument that we should absorb all the divinity, turn them into powder, and then go to another city. But this son dares to oppose his mother's words. Kill. Look over there. In the place I pointed to were the heads of bandits, beautifully gathered by the corrupt giant. That's a head worth 29 silver. I clearly remember what I've been looking for, mother. Huh. The moment I was about to retrieve the mercenary plaque from Pierre's chest, his heart moved quietly, and Pierre's bare cub-like body barely breathed. I smiled brightly. We saved one, though, mother. Kill. I'm on my way there anyway, so please help me do it comfortably. I will take this bear-like friend back to the guys and save him. I'm sure it'll be a great help to my reputation. So please help me, mother. At the end of a short prayer, protection was placed on Pierre's body to prevent the wounds from worsening. I walked slowly, holding a 29 silver head in one hand and Pierre's body in the other. Kill. The mother of corruption shouted urgently. Oh, right. I guess I can't live without mother. I almost forgot. I picked up the frost steel sword that the thief boss was so proud of and tied it around my waist. Thanks to you, mother, I can now afford a sword. Why go back? I'll give you a hand massage. Kill. B.A. Bump. A blue cup was resting on the table. This holy relic was almost neglected by the church, and it wasn't that important. The priest of the flame church remained silent for a long time. But eventually, the priest's mouth slowly opened. What happened to the person who stole this relic? The apprentice, who had received the relic from the ranger, bowed his head. I heard from the rangers that he was beheaded on the spot. The priest went silent again for a while. The body, what did you do with the body? They couldn't afford to retrieve the body, so he only recovered the holy relic. He placed the blue cup in the apprentice priest's hands. Priest, take it and go back first. I'm thinking of going on a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage all of a sudden? Yes. By the way, do you know where exactly the thief was killed? 10 years ago, one oracle came down to all churches. The end will fall on this earth, extinguishing life. What followed was a time of great chaos, but ironically, nothing has happened in the 10 years since. As a result, some argued that this oracle meant a distant future. In contrast, others saw it as a divine revelation to focus on the life in front of them. Asterisk. It was a dark night. The moon shone, and my eyes welcomed its light. I was walking with one hand holding the rope that tied the heads of 8 people together and an unconscious man in the other. It's a very peaceful night, isn't it? Mother. Kill. I couldn't have taken all the equipment and money from the bodies. If I did, they would say I'm a priest who values money over life. Mother. I'll be satisfied with this sword you reminded me to take. Kill. Yeah, as you say, it would have been fine if I had brought some money. It's really thrifty, but that's okay. I crunched through the snow. I'm in a little trouble right now, so I need money, but I'm not desperate for it either, because you are by my side. Kill. While the mother of corruption was deeply moved to tears, I arrived at guys again. It was thanks to my ability to walk without sleep we made such a good time. As I approached the front gate, the guards rushed to work. They raised torches as they shouted. The gates are closed. It's late, so if you want to enter, guys, come back tomorrow morning. I walked a little closer and showed myself. A red torch shone over the white priest's robe I wore, and the traces of the battle, once marking them, miraculously vanished. My name is Marnak, a priest and one of the mercenaries who left in the morning at the Lord's request. I don't mind coming back tomorrow morning, but this friend on my shoulder needs treatment right now. Can you let them in now? At my polite words, the two guards quickly spoke to each other. The man who appeared to be the senior of the two said, "You mean from the 10 mercenaries that left in the morning? That priest?" "Yes. But what about the others? How come only you two returned?" I raised the heads bound with a string. "Can you see this?" The young guard's trembling voice called out. "That's a head. A human head." On the other hand, his senior remained calm. "I'd like you to explain the specifics, priest." I explained to the guard that these heads belonged to the thieves, and that Pierre and I were the only mercenaries who survived. After a brief moment, the senior said something to his companion and sent him somewhere. "Wait a minute. I've delivered the news inside." "What's his condition?" "He's a little hurt, but I think it's okay to wait a little while, because the maintenance goddess is taking care of him." In fact, the protection of the mother of corruption held Pierre's life safe. But after a while, 2 big men and a red-haired lady in a thick overcoat walked over, breathing heavily. It was the young receptionist lady from the mercenary guild. The woman, blinking her pale green eyes a few times, started belting out instructions. "Hurry up and take him to the hospital." "Yes." I carefully handed Pierre over to them. "He may be a little heavy." The 2 big men smirked at my warning. I held Pierre with one hand, so they thought he would be light. However, their expressions changed as soon as they accepted him into their arms. In fact, he was a man as heavy as his size would indicate, although I carried him casually. "Please take care of him." "Yes." The 2 more polite men quickly entered the city with Pierre. The red-haired receptionist turned to me once we were alone. "Priest Marnak, you can also enter. I've already asked the guards for permission." "Thank you." As we entered guys through the west gate, the receptionist lady started chattering. "By the way, I didn't think you would be, but you're very strong." "I'm just a little strong. I heard the heads in your hands were the culprits behind this case. It would be much better to keep the heads in our mercenary guild than to keep them yourself." "I agree. I had no lingering feelings for these heads in the first place, and I just had to get the 29 silver coins they were worth." The receptionist glanced at my face and smiled. "Then can you take me back to the guild house? It's a bit scary to go alone because it's dark." There was no trace of fear anywhere on that beautiful, smiling face. "I will. Kill." I patted my struggling mother's hand and moved on. The receptionist, who introduced herself as Erin, talked the entire way. "Are you a good swordsman? What happened today? If you search those heads in the wanted list, you might get an additional reward," and so on. My cheeks were red from the cold, and the mother of corruption was wriggling in my pocket. "Kill. Kill. Thank you for accompanying me." Erin smiled brightly and accepted the string of heads. A pretty girl with those heads in hand. It felt a bit grotesque, but it wasn't a very strange sight in this world. "Anyway, where do I sleep today? I wish there was an empty room where I slept last night." "Priest." "What? Do you have a place to sleep?" "I'm going to look for one now. Won't there be an empty room for me somewhere in this big city? A room that I could afford with a budget of 90 bronze coins. It might be difficult to find a room on this cold morning." Erin smiled. "If you don't mind, would you like to sleep over here?" Bob-ump. My heart raced. "Kill." Mother's hand wriggled violently. "Kill." I knew everything. I said yes because I knew everything. "Mother, there's not a grain of black in my heart for that red-haired receptionist. I'm telling you." Unfortunately, Erin's suggestion was really pure. The Mercenary Guild had several guest rooms, and Erin lent me one. Once safely inside and alone, I brought up a personal tool to soothe my mother, who was very upset. Squeeze. Squeeze. When I took out Mother's dried hand and gave her a massage, the voice I heard melted drowsily. K-I-L-L. Knock. A sudden knock on the door. I quickly put my mother's hand in my pocket and opened it. Standing at the door was Erin again. "What brings you here?" Erin slowly blinked and held out the basket in her arms. "I thought it would be uncomfortable for you to sleep in a priest's robe, so I brought some extra clothes. Did I happen to wake you?" I accepted the basket and smiled. "No, thanks to you, I can now sleep comfortably. That's a relief. Then, get some good sleep and help me complete the paperwork related to this matter in the morning. Since the priest is the only one who is fine, there are many parts that you need to explain." "I will." Erin nodded, closed the door, and left. I took off my priest's clothes and put on the men's clothes she gave me. They were so big that I could fit two of me in them, but they were comfortable. I folded the priest's clothes and placed them by the bedside. The reason why there was no trace of any battle left on this robe was very simple. It was a priest's robe with the protection of the real maintenance goddess. To put it simply, it had an automatic recovery function, though normally, it wouldn't activate when worn by priests who didn't believe in the goddess of maintenance. I was an exception. As a priest of corruption, I could use objects containing the protection of other gods to disguise myself as any priest. All this was thanks to the mother of corruption. Kill. "Don't worry, mother. I didn't forget that I was rubbing your hand." When I pressed her hand, her voice melted away. K-I-L-L asterisk. Knock, knock. I woke up to another knock on the door. As I opened the door, I was greeted by rich red hair and a consoling expression of Erin. "I wanted to let you have a good night's sleep, but something happened that I had to wake you up for." It was time to wake up anyway. My body didn't require much sleep. "I'm fine. But what's going on?" "The Lord wants to see the priest." "The Lord? Suddenly? I didn't have any connections here." "Do you really mean the Lord?" "Yes. Do you happen to know what this is all about?" "That's—" Erin's explanation was simple. Galad died, and he was the illegitimate son of the former Lord. That was to say, he was the half-brother of the Lord Threatened Filian, who now reigned over guys. I don't know the details, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. But it's weird. From what I understand, the Lord treats Mr. Galad as someone who doesn't exist. "I'll change my clothes and be out in a moment." "Yes." After putting on the priest's robe, I headed to the Lord's mansion with the guards already waiting for me. I was met by a slender figure with a dull-looking face. The cold-looking middle-aged man sitting in front of me was Lord Threatened Filian, the current ruler of Guys. And I immediately forgot a lot of the countermeasures I had thought of beforehand. It was because the hand in my pocket drew a large X with her index finger as soon as she saw the Lord, meaning he was not a creature to be judged by the fingers. Among the options, there was only one that could take a human form. Threatened Filian. He was a demon. Threatened Filian. The world scum. The evil that seduces those lost and wandering, devouring their tragedies and drowning their clogged throats with tears, and so on. If you're looking for the vile words that describe the demons in this world, you would find no end of derogatory terms for them. I quietly looked at Threatened Filian and slowly opened my mouth to speak. Threatened waited relaxed for me to speak, even though he called me here. "Respected Lord Threatened, I'm sorry, but can I ask you a little favor?" "Speak. There's something I'd like to tell you in private." Even though I knew the demon's identity, the demon couldn't recognize me. The divinity of corruption was a very secretive thing. Threatened stared at me and slowly said, "Everyone back off." Hearing his order, the servants and 2 knights backed away. With only the 2 left, I decided to cut to the chase. "Are you enjoying your life as a lord while possessing a human?" "Demon." Threatened stared at me and slowly moved the muscles of his face. His stiff expression changed, and the cold atmosphere disappeared without a trace. Instead, the demon wore a mischievous smile. "Thanks to the dead Galad, we have a special guest." The demon openly examined me up and down, as if licking me all over. It was extremely rude and frivolous, but there was no malice. "If you recognize me at a glance, you're likely not the priest who serves the maintenance goddess." Demons were hostile to most churches. And as the old saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I said with a big smile, "I serve the mother of corruption." The demon's eyes widened with admiration. "Oh, I thought they were all dead, but there was still a son of corruption alive. It's an honor to meet such a precious person." My name is Crawling Creep. RN Epsilon. It's an honor to meet you too. My name is Marnak, a priest who serves the mother of corruption. The smiling demon, Crawling Creep, sat comfortably with his legs stretched out. You can sit comfortably. It's just the two of us here anyway. By the way, I can't believe I'm having such a friendly conversation with a priest. It's been a really long time. The demons had no feelings for the priests or even the gods they worshipped. Their interest was solely directed toward intelligent creatures. Demons were born stronger than anyone else, but couldn't take anything alone. Those who didn't belong to the world had no choice but to obtain what belonged to the world through fair deals made with intelligent partners. Therefore, the demons loved all intelligent beings. They were playful spectators and talkative readers who enjoyed immersing themselves in others' lives. Demons had different things they could do, and their limitations were clear, but from the point of view of a weak human, they were close to omnipotent. Therefore, the gods were wary of them. The price of a deal with a demon was always directly proportional to what you wanted, but the size of your faith and the blessings the gods granted you were rarely so. The gods couldn't agree to their believers' demands, so many fell to the demons' fairer bargain. Eventually, they drew their swords and declared it for all to hear. From now on, the name of the vile are the demons. They are an absolute evil that must be slain. The demons readily accepted the sudden hostility from the gods. And like this, the priest's hunt for demons began. The answer to why I knew so much about the demons was very simple. The demon contractor, which was persecuted by everyone if their identity were discovered, was an extremely difficult job that everyone was reluctant to play. It was the job I set myself to play next after the priest of corruption. Now that I fell into the game, it was irrelevant. Mother's hand in my pocket wriggled as if bored. Kill. Her voice was muffled. Our mother of corruption, unlike the other gods, had little interest in demons. I soothed Mother by patting her hand. How many years have you been in possession? The demon lord stretched out one hand and counted on his fingers, one by one, before smiling broadly. It'll be the 40th winter this year. Ha ha! If it wasn't for this priest, this monumental year would have almost passed by uneventfully. I will hold a festival to bring warmth to this chilly city. Because of the role I find myself in, it's so rare when I can throw it all away and have fun. Crawling Creep soon fell into his own world and began muttering. Let's see, how much money is left for guys this year? It's a little tight, but if I add a little, the city can play and eat for 5 days. Good. Very good. Perfect. After completing the calculations, the demon clapped his hands. If you're not too busy, I hope you enjoy the festival. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. Ha ha ha. The demon, bursting out in friendly laughter, tilted his head and asked me, by the way, why did you come to see me? I came because you invited me. The demon slapped his forehead and belted out another laugh. Oh, right. Look at me. Ha 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 ha. I'm sorry, priest. It's been a while since I've met someone I could talk to comfortably, so I was a bit distracted. I apologize for this. I smiled brightly. It's fine. This son of corruption has a character as generous as his fair face. Kill. The mother of corruption was pleased, as if she were indirectly praised by the demon. Actually, I didn't call you to tell you anything special. It's Galad. I called the priest because I wanted to hear from the witness how he died. If you don't mind, could you tell me more about Galad's death? I'll give you a reward. That wasn't a big deal, so I could do it. Furthermore, he said he'd give me a reward, so why not? I told the demon in detail about how Galad died. After hearing the story, the demon clicked his tongue and shook his head. TSK. What a tragedy. I can't believe my only brother went like that. I've told him several times to quit mercenary work because it's dangerous. TSK. Oh, I meant this body's brother. I looked around carefully. The frugality of this lord was obvious, given the room had no special decorations. So, a frugal demon lord who regretted the death of his ill-fated half-brother. It was fun. I settled into a slightly more comfortable position. By the way, is the original owner of your body the contractor? When I asked, the demon answered as if he had been waiting. Ha ha, you must be curious about my story. I can tell you as much as you want. Isn't a story more interesting if there's someone to listen to it? The story of how the demon started out wasn't so complicated. The demon contractor was Threaten's father, the former lord, and he desperately wanted a woman he met in guise. But the woman he loved already had a fiancé, and the former lord longed for not only her body, but also her heart. In the end, he summoned the demon and spewed out his desires. "Give her heart to me. I'll give you everything." The demon spoke to the former lord in a gentle voice with the utmost kindness. "You don't have to give me everything. All you have to do is give me what I want." "What do you want?" The demon, slowly spreading out the fingers of his hands, laughed. "To ruin one life, you need another. Your 15-year-old son, if you give me his life, I will give you the life of that woman." Devoured by his desire, the former lord sold his son to the demon without hesitation. The demon gave him what he promised. Thus, the woman became the former lord's mistress. The demon said that the son born between the mistress and the lord was Galad. What a pity! Galad was like a child I created, so I always try to take good care of him. But this brother wasn't happy with his birthplace, so he left our home to work as a mercenary. This winter, my brother was in trouble because he had no work. I didn't expect that trying to give him a job in secret would lead to his death. Life is really hard. The demon grinned, filled with satisfaction. That's why it makes my heart beat even faster. By the way, it's time for me to start working as a lord. I like to say more about myself, but I'll put it off again. Oh, you're welcome to come by any time. It's always nice to have a visit from a close friend you can talk with. Before I knew it, I became the demon's friend. The friendly demon lord handed me a bag as a reward, which was very much to my liking. I'm ashamed I didn't put much in it, but it'll help you. Now go back in peace. I left the lord's mansion and carefully opened the bag. Inside were 2 shiny golden coins, each worth 100 silver. Wow! Kill! Oh, mother. He is a lord. What do you mean the lord is trying to seduce me with money? This gold is purely a display of courtesy. The mother of corruption expressed her deep jealousy towards the demon lord, perhaps because she couldn't bestow gold on her son herself. Kill! A priest who covets money. That's too much. But you know what? Gold coins don't rot. Kill! Mother, don't be angry and listen to me till the end. More words are supposed to come after that. I clear my throat. KHM. One thing never rots and lasts as long as a gold coin. Do you know what it is? Kill. That's my love for mother. Kill. She was so touched she couldn't snap out of her reverie. My mother always comes first, so don't worry too much. I patted the hand and headed for the mercenary guild with 2 gold coins in tow. The first sight to greet me was shiny white armor that reflected sunlight, a huge hammer attached to its bearer's back, and a black cloak engraved with patterning of pure white scales. They also had a sword strapped to their waist in case of emergency. 3 priests of the Reformation Church, ready to slaughter at the drop of a hat, were talking to Aaron inside the mercenary guild. Aaron smiled brightly and waved to me once she noticed my appearance. "Oh, you're here? Priest Marnak. Say hello to the Reformation priests here." A friendly greeting was welcome, but I didn't want to meet those fanatical friends. I hid my innermost thoughts, smiled reverently, and bowed to the priests of the Reformation Church. "Hello, I'm Marnak, a priest serving the goddess of maintenance who protects daily life." The moment I made eye contact with one of the priests of the Reformation Church, Kill. Mother informed me that one of them held one of the 12 remaining holy relics. Crawling creep. Those from the Church of Reformation wore outfits that usually came to mind when you think of a paladin. Heavy iron armor and a large battle hammer matched one of the most difficult jobs in the game. The heavy armor, which seemed very difficult to move in at first glance, was a blessed item that became lighter as the priest's faith deepened. And that battle hammer had a blessing that increased its power as it was directed at the enemy. They were a profession that specialized in close combat. The first person to speak was a middle-aged priest of Reformation with scars all over his face. Years of experience could be felt in each of those scars. I should avoid a close-quarters fight if possible. Devotion to the righteous life. I never thought I'd meet a priest who worships the god of maintenance in a place like this. My name is OBS, and I'm a priest of Reformation. These two walk the same path as me. The big guy's name is Cornu. and this is Petina. At the introduction from their leader, the priests called Cornu, and Petina bowed. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Petina was a woman of average stature, with short light brown hair that suited her well. But it was none other than Cornu that caught my attention. He was larger than most adult men, and had a thick horn growing from the middle of his forehead. Cornu was from the one-horned tribe, rarely seen in the human-centered Northern Kingdom. Nice to meet you too. However, that wasn't why I was interested in the one-horned tribe. They were able to attack with divinity, the fatal weakness of the priest of corruption. I could freely use objects under the blessing of other gods and disguise myself as a priest. Still, if, by chance, my identity was discovered, I couldn't be friends with them. My weakness was too clear. The possibility of forming a friendly relationship with the other churches was blocked. That was the priest of corruption's life. An awkward silence settled between the Reformation priests and me, but Aaron intervened at that moment. The Reformation priests will stay here to help mercenaries for a while. Just like you. That was fortunate news. There was still a chance to steal the relic they had. So, what level of friendship should we have? In fact, there was no need to steal the holy relic. It was okay to get the relic, absorb the divinity, and then return it. The problem was that when the divinity was absorbed from the holy relic, the divinity of corruption would flow out for a while. Now I needed to go through a total of 3 steps. Stealing the sacred object somehow, absorb the divinity as far as possible from those priests, then put it back. It was complicated. It was natural that I'd be treated like a madman if I asked them to touch the relic for a moment. Did I have to steal again? I wasn't a priest, but a bandit of corruption. Priest Marnak, I thought for too long. OBS. The man with the scars looked closely at my face and said, "We have something scheduled after this, so I think we should go unpack for now. Let's put off our conversation until next time." Yeah, I needed to get my plans together too. I replied with a big smile. I look forward to meeting you again. The 3 priests bowed and disappeared into the mercenary guild. Inside, Aaron watched their backs as they marched off. The Reformation priests have decided to stay in the mercenary guild while here. Are you okay with that? Our guild usually provides accommodation for the priests who visit us for a small price. Because they're priests. No way. Then that's why you let me sleep here yesterday? Aaron laughed bashfully. Yes, of course. I let you sleep here because you're a priest. The winter wind blowing outside hit my heart, which had been warm for a short moment. Yeah, that couldn't be true. Her bright green eyes blinked. No way. Did you think I let you sleep here because I was interested in you? Not at all. Yes, exactly. I thought this pretty lady had a sneaky black heart for me. Black like pencil lead. Actually, I'm interested in you, so I did you a favor. What? Aaron, after glancing around, came up and whispered softly into my ear. Her warm breath tickled. We have a large supply of groceries coming in tomorrow night, and I was wondering if you could put up a blessing to keep them safe for a long time. I stepped back and patted the side of my face. Why are you whispering such a thing into my ear? Aaron grinned like a mischievous kid. What? My pocket began wriggling violently. Kill, 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 kill. I quickly grabbed onto the hand and smiled. I can give you as many blessings as you want to keep the food from spoiling. In exchange, would it be all right to stay at the guild house for a while? It wasn't a problem for me to put up a simple blessing of corruption and have it remain unnoticed by the priests of the Reformation Church. If the priest wants to stay here, that's great. Great? Great? I pretended to be nonchalant, gently pressing down on my wiggling pocket. Then, I'll thankfully stay for a few more days. Yes, if you're ever in your room and you're bored, come out and talk to me. Well, excuse me, I have some work to do now. Aaron returned to her station, and I returned to my room with my 2 gold coins. Kill. Mother, that's too much. Why don't you use brighter words? Kill. 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 What do you mean? I'm just here to retrieve the holy relic. There's no speck of darkness in my heart for that red-haired lady. I'm telling you. Kill. I mean it. You've watched me over the past 5 years. Don't you know me well? I really have only mother in my heart. This is really bad. I will make you feel my pure heart. I massaged the hand, pressing her palm with all my heart. K-I-L-L. The mother of corruption, who was about to say something, was so absorbed in the massage that she couldn't complete the thought. After I fully relaxed Mother, I came back down to the first floor of the mercenary guild. Only the one-horned man was there sitting in a chair, and he made eye contact with me and smiled. "Oh, isn't it the priest Marnak?" Feeling the need to gather information about the relic, I naturally went and sat in front of Cornu. "I didn't expect to see you again this early. It's really nice to meet you. By the way, where did the other priests go?" "Priest OBS and Petina have gone to greet the Lord of Guys." "Why didn't you go with them?" Cornu smiled awkwardly and scratched his cheek. "Since I'm not human, some of the lords of the Northern Kingdom are opposed to me. Quite a few aristocrats of the Northern Kingdom found it uncomfortable to face other races. I don't think Lord Threaten cares about that at all." Suddenly, Aaron appeared behind me and pulled a chair to interrupt the conversation. Cornu smiled gently and replied to her, "Is that right? I should have visited him with the other priests. Our Lord Threaten has a very stoic personality. Although he is cold-hearted in dealing with people, he is very good at work. He's distinguished between the public servants and his vassals. There are a lot of enthusiastic supporters of Lord Threaten and Guys, so it's best to be careful if you want to gossip about him outside." "I'll keep that in mind." I asked, "But why did the other priests go to see the Lord?" When priests entered the city, no law required them to greet the Lord. The fact that they went to meet the Lord meant they had a different purpose. Cornu peeked at Aaron and slowly opened his mouth. "We're following a prophecy from 10 years ago on this pilgrimage. Priest OBS is the one who thinks that the end of all life will be the demons." "Demons?" "Crazy. Things were going very badly, but I continued as casually as possible. Do you think that the Lord is a demon?" Cornu smiled and waved his big hands. "Oh no, not at all. If I really thought Lord Threaten was evil, would I have stayed here? It's just that Priest OBS goes to check every time he stops by a city. The priest has a holy relic that can tell if someone is a demon or not." "Bad. Very bad. It couldn't have been worse. It was clear that a lot of people were going to die soon. If Threaten had just been possessed by a demon, the 2 priests of the Reformation Church could easily deal with him, but he had spent 40 winters in that body. If he needed to, he could bring a part of his body from the other world to this land." Whoosh! The earth started shaking, and screams echoed through the city streets. Cornu and I bolted out of the guild, and we saw it. A part of the demon had descended into this world and destroyed the Lord's mansion. Gawa! The charcoal skin that covered his whole body was so thick that no spear or sword could pierce it, and the sharp teeth visible through his wide-open mouth were each the size of a human head. Bang! A huge hammer made of pure white light fell onto the head of the huge demon. It was the hammer of punishment, one of the representative powers the Reformation priests could muster. Cornu looked at me. "We have to go help." He looked back to the demon running wild in the distance, and his face stiffened. "Go ahead. I'll be right behind you." While the 3 Reformation priests stopped the demon, I had something to do on my own. The fall. Cornu left while I moved quickly back into the mercenary guild. "Priest Marnak, what the hell is going on? Don't move a single step from here. Stay still." What's happening?" I only half heard Aaron's answer before running into my room. I grabbed my frost steel sword and headed straight for the room where the Reformation priests were staying. "Mother, is it here?" "Kill." "Did they take the holy relic with them?" I turned around without hesitation and returned to the first floor. Aaron was looking out the door, but then she heard me coming and shouted urgently, "Priest, AMO monster. A monster. A monster is in the middle of the city." I couldn't believe she hadn't run away. There would be less trouble this way. "What are we going to do?" I hugged Aaron just like that. "Priest Marnak, where is it?" I stormed out of the mercenary guild with her in tow. Where's the doctor in charge of Pierre's treatment? Please guide me there right now." I couldn't let the life I barely saved die in vain during this disturbance. "Save me. Get out of the way. Don't slow me down." Tangled crowds screamed out. The city was swallowed by chaos. Gah! The huge demon ran wild, destroying everything in its path. The places where the demon had passed were filled with fresh gore and debris. On top of the demon's head, a man in white armor raised a hammer and shouted, "Hammer of punishment." A huge battle hammer shone with pure white light. OBS grabbed the raised hammer with one hand and slammed it down. Die, you filthy being! As soon as the battle hammer hit the demon's head, a huge light hammer fell from the sky. The demon groaned in pain. Gah! The giant black demon struggled, and many people have swept away and crushed. Blood. More blood. Red blood. The flesh of innocent people. Despair. Fear. Chaos. Guys was falling apart. Aaron. Yes, yes. Come on, to where Pierre is. Aaron pointed in a direction. I started sprinting down the road. Mother was silent, even though I was holding Aaron, because she knew how serious it was. Priest Marnak. There. Over there. Pierre's place was near where the demon was currently running, and the door was already open. Pierre. Blood was flowing down the floor, and the owner of the place had already died. Taking advantage of the confusion, two men robbing the people inside looked at me with startled expressions. Garbage. Garbage beyond redemption. Who? Without hesitation, I pulled out the frost steel sword with one hand and swung at the neck of the nearest man. Shaking the blood off the sword, I grabbed the other one's head and slammed it into the wall. His head split open and blood splattered. Pierre. Fortunately, Pierre was lying unconscious in his bed, bandaged all over. I sheathed the sword and carried him out. Hold on tight. I can't hold you with both hands anymore. With Aaron hugging my neck tightly, I ran towards Guy's front gates. The streets were overcrowded, with citizens fleeing in an attempt to survive. The people who fell while running were crushed to death by the crowd. Gah! The demon shook his head while roaring. It would be too late if I went down this tight road. I looked around for another path. Fortunately, I noticed a low roof that I could jump to. My judgment was quick, and my body moved almost as fast. Aaron screamed with a sudden motion. Kaya! I jumped from roof to roof and ran to the nearest gate. The west gate, when I finally arrived, was crowded just like the streets. Priest. There's a secret passage I know. Where is it? You can go that way. Following Aaron's guidance, we arrived at a small building. We can get out of Guy's through the basement passageway, but the door is locked. All right. After I kicked the door, it fell with a hefty thump that kicked up plenty of dust. Running down to the basement, I dropped Pierre and Aaron off in front of the passage. If things get any worse, just run away. Priest, what about you? I'm going back. Having secured the safety of my acquaintances, it was time to save those I didn't know. Aaron tried to tell me something, but I ran out of the building without listening. Gah! A hammer of pure white light fell from the sky again. The demon let out a pained scream, shaking his head. OBS held onto the white sword lodged in the demon's head and resisted its attempts to shake him free. Hammer of punishment. A man with a horn on his head rushed toward the demon's legs. A similar shining hammer hit its foot. Another light hammer fell, but Cornu's was definitely smaller than that of Ob's. Of course, that meant the blow's power was weaker, too. Gah! Cornu couldn't escape the demon's hand. The one-horned man flew in the air and smashed into a wall. Seeing that, I ran to his fallen form. Priest Cornu. Climbing over the ruins of the building and calling his name, I heard a voice creeping out from under the rubble. Priest Marnak here. Cornu's condition after being hit was disastrous. His armor turned into chains that now imprisoned him, stained bright red by the blood flowing through the gaps. I grabbed the half-smashed Cornu and asked, "Where's the other priest?" Petina was nowhere to be seen. Cornu managed to gather enough strength to spit out a few words. Petina is dead. The demon. Is there any way to kill him? Yes. Another relic we brought. That's with Priest OBS now. The white sword that he put in the demon's head. If that sword penetrates the thick skin and pierces the fiend's brain, the demon will die. Cornu, who squeezed his last strength out to utter those words, died then and there. I put my hand on his head and closed his eyes. Dear Mother of Corruption, take this guy back. With a gentle prayer, Cornu's body decayed in seconds, leaving only his crushed armor. He was a 2 fingers worth man and became 100 divinity for me. With roughly all the information I needed, it was time to stop that wild demon. I left the building and pulled out the frost steel sword. Gah! The demon was still running around. Hammer of punishment. Hanging onto the demon's head, OBS swung his hammer repeatedly. Upon closer observation, I discovered that the hammer was hitting the handle of the white sword, not actually the demon's head. That must be the holy sword that could kill a demon. The huge body crashed into the buildings in its way. The earth shook violently under its frenzied stride while I calmly watched for an opportunity. Gah! The moment when the demon moved around the corner, I jumped out and clung to his leg with my sword in hand. My body shook violently with each swing of the demon's foot. But bit by bit, I climbed the demon's legs and ascended to his head. Hammer of punishment. The hammer of light fell once again with a violent roar. Gah! The world turned upside down. The demon began rolling around the floor with its gigantic body. It was clear that if I stayed like this, I would be crushed completely, so I pulled out my sword and jumped away. The air welcomed me as I fell. The distant floor approached swiftly. I rolled to minimize the impact of the fall, but my body was still swept away, and the white robe I wore was stained red with my blood. My body was racked with pain, but I pushed myself to my feet through it. My drug-enhanced body responded to the brain's command almost instantly. Gah! A refreshed roar followed. It didn't take long to find traces of the smashed OBS. Unlike me, he couldn't escape the disaster that huge body created. When I looked at the demon's head, I saw the white sword still peeking out. With the priests of reformation dead, the demon began to carry on his indiscriminate destruction to relieve his pent-up rage. The screams of those who couldn't escape rang out. I started running once again. I ran over the flat road, over the ruins of buildings, and jumped over the roofs of those still remaining. Puck! I swung, cutting into the demon's tail. Compared to its enormous body, the frost steel blade was as small as a needle, so the damage it caused was pitifully minimal. The demon ignored me and continued to destroy guys. I moved forward little by little, relying on the sword to climb up the demon's body as it raged. My target was that relic stuck in the demon's head. Perhaps Ob's efforts weren't in vain. He had dug the blade deep enough that only a small sliver of white now remained visible. The demon's rampage would end if I pushed that holy relic a little further. Gah! My body was jarred by the demon's rampage. When I couldn't stand the shaking, I held the frost steel sword and clung to the giant body, waiting for the tremors to pass. The demon's rampage was only intensifying in the meanwhile. I persevered and reached the demon's back, then a bit further until I finally reached the handle of that white sword. The demon's body started shaking violently again as I reached for the white sword. Kill! Something shifted in my pocket. Mother's hand, thrown free by the shaking, flew into the air and started a free fall toward the ground. Kill dash. Thud. Mother's voice disappeared, and it was suddenly silent. The anxiety of being left alone in the world was suffocating. I couldn't breathe properly. Mother, 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 mother. The sword in front of me didn't matter. Without hesitation, I jumped off the demon's head. The landing was a complete failure. My legs were crushed by the fall, and I was left crying like a child. Mother, where are you? Mother. A small voice entered my mind. Kill. I crawled toward the direction the voice was coming from. My nails broke, and my fingertips turned red from scratching against rock. And yet I crawled on and on. Finally, I reached Mother's hand in the wreckage. Peace returned to my mind. Mother, kill. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was in such a hurry that I almost lost you. Kill. 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 What are you saying, huh? When I looked in the direction the Mother corruption was pointing, I saw Ob's crushed corpse and a small mirror in front of him. Kill. That mirror was the sealed relic we'd been longing for. I snatched it up and smiled. You said it was a blessing in disguise. That's true, Mother. Today was really fun. Second power. The mirror was too opaque to see someone's face in it. I tried changing the angle here and there, but nothing was reflected. I heard that the sword in the demon's head was used to slay evil. So this mirror must be the holy relic that revealed a demon's identity. But the mirror's ability didn't matter to me at all. Kill. I'm trying to absorb it faster, Mother. As I looked in the mirror and silently offered my prayers to the Mother of corruption, A dark green light slowly emanated from the mirror, seeping into my body and Mother's hand. When the energy emanating from the mirror stopped, I closed my eyes. Divinity, 11,723. As expected, a sealed holy relic had roughly 10,000 divinity, making it worth one ability. I brought my attention back to reality and carefully lifted Mother's hand out of the pocket. Mother, another seal has been released. Could you tell me what changed? Kill. I was patiently waiting for her to tell me what had changed. Anyway, my legs were crushed after the fall, so there was nothing I could do other than wait for them to regenerate. After a short wait, she finally said, Kill. What? Is that true? Kill. Mother's hand, which fell out of my grasp, crawled and put some distance between us. It then collapsed, looking tired, and sent me her will. Kill. I crawled after her, took up the hand, and put it back in my pocket. It is certainly a good thing that you can send your will from a little further away than before, but isn't that too poor a result for breaking the seal of a holy relic? No, it's definitely poor. This is disappointing, and this is the only thing that... Kill. I laughed as Mother screamed. You seem to be able to speak a little better. It's an unbelievable development. You can now speak one letter at a time. This son is in tears at his mother's growth. It with ring above S. Kill. Mother's hand struggled violently, telling me not to make fun of her. Okay, given the situation, it would be better to stop making fun of you now. I closed my eyes and prayed quietly. Dear Mother of Corruption, I will offer you 10,000 divinity, so please grant me a new ability. The divine level within was rapidly dropping, and a new power was forming in its place. At the same time, as I gained the new ability, information about what effect it had was engraved in my mind. Kill. It's not a bad ability, Mother, and it's useful even in the current situation. The newly acquired power was the corruption arts. The effect of this power was simple but powerful. It further amplified my physical abilities beyond the scope of a human. However, dark green mystical tattoos appeared across my body when I activated the power. However, unlike the Giant of Corruption, this power wasn't only beneficial to me. The cost of the corruption arts was the same as its ability. While using it to amplify my physical abilities, I was slowly rotting from the inside out. By the time the corruption reached the outer parts of my body, I'd be practically incapable of combat. I smiled brightly. Once I use this, I'll be in a lot of pain until my intestines regenerate, Mother. Kill. I patted Mother's hand. Mother, you don't have to feel sorry for me. Wasn't that power what I wanted in the first place? Besides, it's always good to have more things I can use. My crushed legs had finished regenerating. Gah! I slowly stood and looked at the demon, still raging in the distance. Now that I think about it, it's very strange. Kill. It was very strange that the demon was raging like a beast, even now, after all the priests who angered him were dead. A demon wasn't a beast that left everything to instinct. So far, the situation was so urgent that I couldn't afford to think about it. Still, the brief respite allowed me to analyze the current situation. Eventually, I reached a likely conclusion. Mother. Kill. It may be a little shaky. Hold on tight. Kill. A man in a pure white priest's robe ran over the ruined buildings. The divinity of corruption flowed from the dark green tattoos that covered his skin. Every time Marnak kicked off the earth with his legs, he flew, narrowing the distance between him and the demon in seconds. Gah! The black giant realized that something was coming his way. The demon rolled his big eyes around and found the cause of this ominous feeling lingering in the air. A small creature was running toward him. The demon responded in a very simple way. He swung at the unpleasant creature with his large tail at full force. The formidable whip broke down everything in its path and made its way to snuff that little life. The muscles in Marnak's legs burst to the limit as if they had been waiting. He soared into the air, passing a hair's breadth over the tail. As it swung below, he stretched out and grabbed on, then used it to run up the demon's body. As the demon tried to tear at the creature running on its back with its claws, it realized one fatal fact. He couldn't reach his back. Faced with the limitations of his body structure, the demon eventually chose a different method. Once again, he decided to roll on the ground. That swift creature would be crushed to death by his body, like the lump of metal that hurt him before. At least he thought so. The black body Marnak was running on started tilt. But this was also expected. Marnak jumped from the creature's back and landed on the ground. The shock settled in his knees, but his amplified body endured. Cough. Rotten intestinal fragments popped out of his mouth with that cough. This is faster than I expected. It's hard to use for a long time, Mother. There was no time to stop now, however. A dark shadow covered the earth. Marnak sprinted through the rubble again, avoiding the demon's massive body rolling behind him. The demon collapsed the streets of Guise with its ponderous weight. Marnak kept running, and then, after having fun rolling around, the demon rose again. Marnak leaped to the demon's feet and clasped on, ascending like a monkey climbing a tree. Gah! The demon roared, but no matter how hard he tried to shake the small creature off, it refused to fall. The screaming demon dropped his giant body again. If once wasn't enough, he would repeatedly roll until it stopped climbing. Its body started tilting again. However, Marnak didn't jump down like earlier. Having already reached the demon's neck, his eyes sparkled with the reflection of the white sword stuck in the top of his head. Jump! The priest of corruption glided across the slanting body below, then leaped into the air again with his hand stretched out. Marnak's hand nearly failed to catch the white sword. If he pushed it just one more inch, the demon would be dragged to the other world. But Marnak didn't push the sword in. Instead, he yanked the sword free. Wake up, Gaia! The giant demon collapsed. The dark flesh that fell below Marnak became a soft cushion, absorbing the shock. Marnak stood up again and dug up a piece of flesh. Then he smiled as he finally found the demon's gaze. Have you lost your mind? The demon slightly frowned with his remaining eye, then laughed. Looks like meeting the priest was a real blessing for me. The demon loved negotiating and enjoyed talking in general. No matter why he was angry, it was strange to go wild without saying a word. After examining the condition of the demon, I came to one conclusion. Something was forcibly suppressing his intellect. The only thing that didn't belong in that giant body was the white sword stuck in the top of his head. Then the story was simple. That white sword was the shackle suppressing his intellect. So instead of pushing the white sword deeper, I freed his mind by pulling it out. The demon, who lost one eye, 2 legs, and his left arm, lamented. Too much. That's really too much. Guise is the city I've cherished for the past 40 years. I can't believe I destroyed it. I sat down next to the demon. In the aftermath of the corruption arts, my stomach was turned upside down, and it was difficult to stand. What's broken can be rebuilt. How nice would it be to rebuild the city to be even better than before? In addition, if you look closely, the outer buildings are still intact. The demon chuckled. The priest is absolutely right. It is also a very exciting, making my heart pound like this. Ha ha. By the way, can I ask you a question? You may ask. An eyeball and a hole containing only bloody flesh turned toward me. Why did you help me? Didn't you give me 2 gold coins? If a person receives something, they have to repay it. I smiled brightly. What do you think of my 2 gold coins worth of help? The demon grinned too. It was plenty. The request. It's near here. At the ranger's gesture, the priest of the flame church slowly bowed his head to express his gratitude. Thank you for your guidance. Could you step back for a moment? Yes. As the ranger slowly stepped back, the flame priest stepped forward and gestured. A blue flame from his fingertips gently enveloped the earth. The flames crawled across the ground like a living being, melting only the snow. The ranger admired the marvelous sight. It's a great power however you look at it. The priest of the flame, having melted all the surrounding snow, didn't answer. The blue flames swept through the cold to reveal the traces underneath. Since it's been a while, I think a monster or beast devoured the body. Is that so? That's understandable. The priest of the flame examined the now dry earth. Can you tell me the names of the cities around here? Asterisk. Priest, thank you very much. I would have died that evening if it weren't for you. A week had passed since the demon ran wild. Pierre's body was still bandaged, but I smiled and patted his shoulder. I was just doing what I was supposed to as a human. Don't worry about it. Pierre's eyes trembled with emotion. He struggled to speak. Priest, I hope you take care of yourself when you return to your hometown. I'll see you when I get a chance. It must have been quite a shock that the bandits killed all of his comrades. So Pierre told me yesterday that he had decided to stop working as a mercenary and return to his hometown. Now he was lying in the corner of a carriage headed to his old village. Pierre looked at me with eyes big like a cow's. If you really come, I'll treat you well no matter how difficult it might be. I won't forget. I'll visit you sometime. A shout sounded from the front of the carriage, and it would depart soon. It's time to part ways. Go in peace. Stay healthy, priest. Pierre wished me goodbye, swinging his injured arm. After bowing my head and seeing him off, I headed for the mercenary guild through the west gate. I'm not sure what to do today, Mother. Kill. I've heard you, Mother. I should stop playing around and do something, but I still don't have enough money in my pocket to warm my heart every time I see it. Doesn't Mother know it as well? I have to hide and stay quiet right now. Ranopes. Kill. Mother scolded me for saving the demon, and she knew too well that we had to stay hidden. That's true too, but what could I do with the 2 gold coins he paid in advance? Kill. I patted my pocket. This isn't going to work. In this case, I will use the secret funds that I saved once again. Kill. I heard it on the way, but a good medicine for skincare arrived. I'll buy it on the way home and apply it carefully to your hand. How about that? Kill. I walked through the town with a light step and a big smile while Mother's hand nagged joyfully. Closing both eyes, the divinity I absorbed during the demon incident emerged in my mind. Divinity, 3,482. After saving the demon, I harvested most of the corpses that could be harvested. Thanks to this, I could obtain a fairly large amount of divinity. The senseless deaths were truly sad, but the living must continue. In addition, OBS was a 3 fingers worth human. When I harvested his crushed body, I gained a whopping 1,000 divinity. Aaron shouted loudly as I entered the mercenary guild house after buying the skincare beauty medicine from Mother's hand. Demon Slayer Marnak. How many times have I told you not to call me by that nickname? Every time you do, I'm seriously embarrassed. Yes, by the time the incident settled down, Lord Threaten publicly announced that I had rescued him and taken the last breath of the giant demon. Thanks to this, I was granted the great nickname of Demon Slayer, even though it didn't suit me. Erin liked the nickname, though. Whenever she called me that, it always got the attention of people around her. Like this time. Is that priest the famous Demon Slayer? Contrary to how he looks, he's very strong. He cut down 7 bandits by himself a while ago. He killed a demon and 7 bandits by himself. I'm still afraid that giant monster will pop out again. I asked Aaron, with one ear listening to the rumors about me. How did the recovery of the relics go? The opaque mirror and the pure white sword. I obtained the divinity of corruption sealed in the mirror. At the same time, the pure white sword was just an ordinary relic, so no divinity was obtainable. Aaron replied with a smile, playfully flashing her white teeth. I left in storage. Are you sure you don't want to reveal your name? Of course. There was no need to become more entangled with those fanatics of the Reformation Church. Anyway, the mirror that revealed the demon's identity and the sword that killed demons were things I didn't really need. If I had them for no reason, I might run into the religious priests who came to retrieve their holy relics. All right. Erin loudly clapped her hands, then leaned closer to me with a quiet voice. When you were away for a while, the Lord's soldiers came looking for you. They said to visit the Lord's residence as soon as you have time. Okay. Aaron glanced around and whispered again. Perhaps the Lord wants to entrust a job to Priest Marnak. These secret jobs are well paid, but also very risky, so consider it carefully before deciding. How do you know that? Everyone knows. Go quickly. It's very rude to keep the Lord waiting. I came out of the mercenary guild, pushed out by Aaron's hands. Kill. Kill. Mother, who was looking forward to the skincare medicine, grumbled. I patted my pocket and headed out. Why are you angry when something you wanted so much happened? Kill. Ugh. What do you mean? Why don't we just rest for today? even if you have a different attitude than before. Isn't it too different? KILL. I know you're angry because you're embarrassed. I'll quickly go back and apply it to every nook and cranny after hearing what the Lord has to say, so please bear with me for a moment. Kill. After a dramatic compromise was established, I headed for the Lord's residence. Welcome, priest. I was waiting for your arrival. How come your face looks brighter every time I see it? Ha ha ha. A demon with exquisitely carved wooden prosthetic legs, prosthetic arms, and transparent eyes greeted me. You're exaggerating. How can I exaggerate in praising our demon-slaying priest Marnak? The Lord poured a cup of hot tea and offered it to me. The wooden hand moved gently, as if alive. It was fascinating every time I saw it. I took a sip and laughed. Isn't the demon known to have been slain by the demon slayer alive, right here? Demons have a right to live, too. No life was born just to die, right? The demon grinned and buried himself in his chair, kicking out his wooden legs. It's always amazing that wooden prosthetics can move naturally. I do this only in front of the priest, but in front of other people I limp around. In addition, I had to pay a huge price for such natural movement. What's the price? Taking a sip, the devil laughed playfully. Soon, the hair roots in this body will lose their strength and fall like leaves in mid-autumn. Perhaps if you see me in a few months, you'll be greeted by a sparkling, bare mountain monk. It was a terrible price indeed, but as a demon able to easily accept such a price? While I was admiring his resolve, the demon brought out his business. Priest, do you have a week or so to spare? The time is no problem. The money problem was serious enough to stop rolling around for that long. That's really good. There's one good job request, and you were directly nominated. Nominated? Me? As I looked at him with suspicion, the devil quickly continued explaining. I think that after hearing the name of Demon Slayer, they thought the priest was the right person for this job. It's probably related to the ruins of the ancient empire. I was genuinely surprised. Were there any ruins of the ancient empire around here? They said that they came to explore the ruins anyway. Since the person leading the party is a nobleman from the capital, it's probably not groundless. The ancient empire unified the continent after ending the era of lawless wizards a long time ago. The relics of the ancient empire were said to be precious treasures with powerful abilities for the scholars of the present age. They still search for the empire's lost technologies. Most of the high-grade items in this game had the trait relic of the ancient empire. The ruins that held them were similar to dungeons in other games. Kill. As Mother mentioned, I decided that I should take this job. I'll accept. We haven't even talked about compensation yet, but you're accepting it already? What's the pay? It's a whopping 5 gold coins, and he'll pay them all in advance. Besides, he said that he would also hand over one of the excavated artifacts if you contributed to their expedition into the ruins. I answered quickly, I will definitely do it. Asterisk. The group had a total of 3 people. One person was presumed to be a wizard wearing thick robes, a one-horned man armed with a large shield and an axe, and the last man wore leather armor with a bow strapped to his back. May unwavering happiness be maintained in your life. I am Marnak, a priest serving the maintenance goddess who protects our daily life. As I bowed and said hello, the handsome man with a bow walked toward me with a cheerful smile. At first glance, he gave off a weak impression, but judging from his thick limbs, he must constantly be training. Nice to meet you, priest. My name is Carmen Baltas. I commissioned this work. I've heard so many things from Lord Threaten. He's a very wise man, so I'm really happy to be able to work with you. I replied with a quiet smile. Please take good care of me. Carmen Baltas. But Carmen Baltas? The last name was unusual as Baltas was famous in this wild north. Only because of one man, Black Wolf Ensis Baltas. The best general in the north was known far and wide as the strongest protector of the queen and a strict man of principle. As if he noticed my thoughts, Carmen wore a bright smile. You're right. Ensis Baltas, the Black Wolf, is my father. However, in case you misunderstood, let me tell you in advance that I am a bastard. Bastard? A bastard to that picky man of principle Black Wolf? As far as I knew, he'd been alone ever since he lost his wife. I guess a person's reality is usually different from the gossip. However, It wasn't polite to ask more here, so I gently changed the subject. Can you introduce me to the people behind you? Sure. Carmen's clear and cheerful response was the kind that aroused friendliness from anyone. The name of the one wearing this hooded robe is our wizard Tanisa. She is the one who will lead us to the ancient ruins. Tanisa didn't even look at me, but only slightly bowed her head to say hello. I didn't need to get closer to her, so I just smiled and bowed my head back. In the first place, most of the wizards were small-minded idiots. The way to become a wizard in this world was simple. Be born right away as a wizard. Born with magical powers from the time they left the womb. There were slight differences between individuals. Still, when they reached a certain age, they awakened. Then, a huge amount of information about ancient magics flooded their head. In this way, they were reborn as true wizards who used ancient spells and their innate magical powers to distort the world's laws at no cost. However, they were naturally hesitant to learn, perhaps because of the information about ancient languages in their heads. As a result, most wizards were strong thugs lacking in culture. Finding culture in a wizard was as difficult as finding a white rabbit crouching in the pure snow. So, there was no need to worry about them. Carmen watched the wizard and I exchanged greetings and then introduced me to a heavily armed one-horned man. This is Succus. He's always been a reliable friend. The one-horned man named Succus stepped out and reached a hand out to me. Nice to meet you, Demon Slayer Marnak. I flashed an awkward smile and held out my hand. Just call me Marnak. That nickname is embarrassing. Your achievements are nothing to be embarrassed about. Be proud. His large hands held mine tighter and tighter. Right, this man was like that priest Cornu. He was a social fellow because he was a priest, but the members of his tribe typically enjoyed the combat. When dealing with them, it was convenient to act a little tough. Tightening my grasp, I pulled his hand closer. Then Succus, who had a bigger body than mine, felt his weight shift. Pushing out with one foot, I gently tripped him. Thud! His large body fell to the ground with a heavy thud. I reached out my hand to him again and smiled. Is this enough? Succus laughed from his spot on the ground. Ha ha! This is great. Great. As expected from the Demon Slayer, his strength is a match for our one-horn tribe. I really like this subtle but wild personality. RB excellence. Succus grabbed my hand and pulled himself up. I'm glad you like it. After this is over, let's have a drink together. I'll look forward to that day. To me, having lost my sense of taste, alcohol was nothing but water. Still, there was no need to make the atmosphere awkward by refusing. Carmen smiled cheerfully when he saw that I had finished greeting them. Now that we've all said hello, why don't we get going? Let's keep talking as we go. We'll have to walk 2 full days to the ruins anyway. Asterisk, burning firewood, sparks popping. In the dark night, the campfire was our only light. Carmen pushed in a new piece of wood and glanced at me. Aren't you going to sleep? Since your watch is over, you should rest until dawn. I can't sleep anymore. It had been 2 days since we left, guys. Carmen and I, who were of similar age, could get to know each other quite well. I also built a pretty good relationship with Succus. The wizard Tanisa was a very reticent woman, so she didn't talk much, but I didn't really care. I pulled out the fur cloak I bought before leaving, guys, and wrapped it tight around myself. The more I look at it, the more I feel it, but it seems that Priest Marnak isn't human. Are you of mixed-horned ancestry? Is it that your father or mother was of the one-horned? Since my father was certainly human, can I consider that now as a suspicion of my mother's fidelity? Carmen giggled at my playful remark. I'm joking. It's a joke. By the way, do you have any interesting stories to tell? Priest Marnak is good-looking, so you must have dated quite a few women. I grabbed a piece of firewood lying next to me and pushed it in. I'm like a white snowfield that no one has stepped on. Whoa, that's surprising. So, do you have a type? As Carmen asked, his eyes twinkling as if he was having fun. I felt a calm wriggling from my pocket. I like a woman who stays with me. The wriggling in my pocket stopped. Carmen nodded in agreement. Well, it's worthwhile to wake up in the morning and see a woman sleeping next to you. Now that I've talked about me, why don't you talk about yourself? You mean the type of woman I like? Yes. Carmen, scratching his cheek as if embarrassed, stared into the flames. To me, the heart is the most important thing. Kill, kill. Mother lifted her finger as if she was very satisfied with those pure words. But before she stopped moving, Carmen drew large breaths in the air with his hands. It's obvious, but since their hearts are in their chests, to have a wide heart, you must have a bigger container to hold it. Kill. The mother of corruption was genuinely perplexed by the sudden, strange direction of the conversation. Carmen turned to look into my eyes and gave a big smile. Priest Marnak, I like big breasts. With that dignified attitude, I felt a different sense of innocence from him. Before I could say anything, Mother shouted loudly, "Kill!" I chuckled as I patted Mother's hand, who was wriggling to get me away from that lewd man immediately. It's not a bad thing to have a strong taste. It will be a flame to light the way for you in the future. But if I can give you a piece of careful advice, it's better not to talk about it in front of the person you like. Carmen laughed loudly. Ha ha! I don't go around talking about things like this often. It's all because I'm with you. Besides, haven't we gotten along quite well over the past few days? Why talk with you? I feel like you're an old friend. In fact, I also really liked this cheerful man. I replied with a grin. So do I. Kill. We greeted the morning with Mother yelling at me, telling me to choose my friends carefully. But now it was time to enter the ancient ruins. Asterisk. I'll open it. Tanisa mumbled an ancient language in a low voice and pushed the key into the air. The space distorted, and the black hole opened its mouth. The way to enter the ruins of the ancient empire was very simple. 1. Obtain a key, the key item to enter the ruins. 2. Move to the coordinates written on the key and read the ancient language. 3. Finally, push the key into the air and turn it clockwise or counterclockwise as desired. If you met these 3 conditions, you could enter the ruins of the ancient empire. However, since only wizards could read the ancient language written on the key, a wizard's presence was indispensable in exploring them. The only exception to this was in the players of this game. Yes, I could read the ancient languages. I couldn't use magic because I didn't have magic powers. I had tried many times to get the keys to the ruins before, but they were quite precious, and I had no connections to this world. Let's go in. Carmen, shouting, stepped toward the opening. Then in turn, Succus, me, and finally Tanisa entered the ruins. The black hole slowly disappeared as Tanisa entered with the key. The only way to leave the ruins was to use the key or find an exit somewhere. Wow, wow, Carmen and I exclaimed together. In fact, seeing the inside of the ruins that I had only ever seen before through screenshots on the internet made my heart flutter. It was a huge white building at the end of a tunnel made of white stone. However, there was no sign of life to mar this neat beauty. There was no chirping of tiny birds, no loud chirping of insects, no animals bounding. There was no sound of life, only the years' silence settled. The lingering aftertaste of emotion faded, and Carmen smiled against the dreary stillness. Shall we go inside? It seems like a better preserved ruin than I've ever been to, so there must be plenty of relics. Well preserved? I braced myself at Carmen's words. The fact that the ruins were well preserved meant that the rating was quite high. That said, there was a high probability that a high-level guardian would appear. Of course, there was the possibility that it could be a bonus ruin without a guardian. There was nothing wrong with being nervous ahead of time, though. I moved forward with pounding anticipation after Carmen's lead. The battle. We proceeded slowly and carefully. A pure white hallway greeted us as we passed the statues and entered the building. However, the hallway was blanketed in darkness. A blue light lit up the hallway, as if to sneer at Carmen when he tried to ignite the torch he had prepared. He looked back at us and smiled awkwardly. I'm going to take this since it's already lit. You never know when those lights will go out. I reached out to Carmen. Then I'll take the torch since I'm not carrying anything. All of my weapons are one-handed anyway. Among Carmen's armaments, he had a bow, so it was only right for me to carry the torch. He bowed slightly to show his gratitude and handed the torch to me. A huge door greeted us as we moved deeper into the structure. The center of the door was covered with complex characters. It had a lot of modifiers and flowery language, but it simply said, "Prove the royal blood running through your veins." So, These were ruins where you could take everything for free if you had the blood of the ancient royal family. Of course, it was a secret that I could read the ancient languages. So Tanisa stepped forward, glanced at the inscriptions on the door, and said to Carmen, "Blood. Without the blood of the ancient royal family, we must prepare ourselves for battle." It was possible that it would be difficult for only 4 people to leave these well-preserved ruins alive. We all looked to Carmen. The party's leader and the employer were Carmen, so it was entirely up to him to step back and bring in more people or go further. Carmen stared at the door. "Isn't there another way written?" "Yes, but personally I think it would be a good idea to try getting in, as we can just run away with the key in an emergency." As if the silence up until now was simply because there was no need to speak, Tanisa spoke clearly and bluntly, not like a wizard at all. Succus, standing next to her, nodded as if she was right. "I agree with her." As Succus finished speaking, Carmen's gaze turned to me. I answered with a quiet smile. "I think it would be good to go in and try since we're already here." Carmen smiled. "Everyone came here because you wanted something, so let's be as careful as possible. Only those with courage can get a woman with a wide heart and precious treasures." Succus opened the door. "I'll cover you. Are in beta." "Okay." As Succus wore the thickest armor among us, he pushed the door open. Carmen pulled out the bow from his back and knocked an arrow. Creak. As Succus pushed it, the huge door creaked open. I drew the frost steel sword and stood behind Succus. Bang. Finally, when the huge door was completely open, an ominous red light lit up the room. Succus quickly picked up the shield and axe he had put down and readied himself for battle. We stood still and waited for something to pop out, but nothing appeared in the large square room with red light. Carmen glanced around, slackening the bowstring and beckoning with one hand. With Succus in the lead, we marched forward. Only the sound of our footsteps could be heard in the stillness that threatened to suffocate our hearts. There were only 2 paths inside. One was the door we came in from, and the other was a black door at the end of the room. The change happened when we reached the very center of the square. Carmen, aware of the shift in the air, spoke softly. "Tanisa, be prepared to use the key, just in case." Slam. The door we entered through closed by itself. And as the black door on the other side slowly ascended, the guardians of the ruins revealed themselves. Their bodies were covered in black leather and pure white metal armor over them. They were human-sized, bipedal monsters made partly of machines. There were about 10, maybe 11 of them. Fortunately, the enemies were all armed with swords and shields, and not one had ranged weapons. "Tanisa, the spell," Carmen shouted and fired an arrow. The arrow pierced the black-leather guardian in the lead through the neck. When one guardian fell, it signaled the rest to start running at us. With Tanisa's murmur, a huge boulder floated out of the floor and struck another guardian. The guardian, their arm crushed, flew back and hit the ground. There were 9 left. Being surrounded by an open plaza was very dangerous, so we kept backing up to check the guardian's approach. But when the remaining guardians reached 7, we had no choice but to allow them to approach. Now, it was my turn to step up. I threw the torch I was holding. When the red trail struck the approaching guardian's head, I caught up with it and swung my frost steel sword. Another head flew through the air. Now there were 6. "Succus, cover behind." "Leave it to me." The guardian swung his sword at me. When my sword raised at an angle and the guardian's sword collided, the guardian's arm bounced back. The guardian calmly threw his shield at me next, but I kicked it away. The guardian, unable to withstand my strength, fell back. The moment I was about to rush in to finish it. "Kill," Mother warned me as another guardian came wielding a sword from my blind spot. It would be good to get another one here. When I was about to retreat, leaving my regrets behind, an arrow pierced the guardian's neck. Looking back, Carmen smiled and nodded. I rushed to the fallen guardian and dealt the final blow. 4 guardians remained. No, Succus had just split one of the guardians' heads with an axe, so now there were 3. Tanisa, standing behind Succus, beckoned lightly, and rock rising from the floor struck the guardian once more. The guardian flew towards me, and I split it in half. No blood spattered. Carmen fired 2 arrows at one of the 2 left. The other was handled by Succus and his axe. Finally, all the guardians collapsed, and as if waiting, 8 new guardians appeared. This time among the enemies were 2 guardians with bows. Carmen shouted, "Priest Marnak, can you dig in and check the archers first?" "I'll give a try." My job was Priest of Corruption, but since I couldn't use my abilities openly in front of people, my actions were closer to those of a swordsman or warrior. Seriously, at least the melee combat professions were compensated for this kind of situation. As I grumbled, I rushed toward the guardians. "Kill." With Mother's warning, I sensed the 2 arrows as they took flight. One was aimed at my torso, and the other went for my head. I gripped the frosteel sword even harder and swung. Swoosh! I cut down the one aimed at my body and tilted my head to avoid the other. Now I could close the distance before they shot again, but the other guardians moved to block me. "Priest Marnak, just run." The arrows and rocks flying from behind kept the guardians in check. I took that chance and swung my sword horizontally. An archer's head flew through the air and fell to the ground. Not satisfied with that, I lowered my stance and continued the attack. The frost steel sword pierced the archer's waist, and the upper and lower body gave each other an eternal farewell. Ah! Succus, following me, pushed one of the guardians back with his shield. After that, the situation became one-sided. The guardians could not reach Carmen and Tanisa before they were cut down. However, in the middle of that, the guardians, deflected by Tanisa's spell, kept flying toward me. Of course, I took advantage of the situation every time to take the guardians' lives. Still, as soon as the battle was over, Succus growled at Tanisa as if it meant something different. "Why do you keep pushing the enemy toward your allies? Marnak and I almost got hurt. We caught them all. That's what matters. So, please stop grumbling." That was the fastest way to deal with the enemy. "What? This bitch with no horns. Say it again right now." I stopped Succus from rushing her, and Carmen intervened. "Stop. That's enough, Succus." "Tanisa." Succus sharpened his teeth and glared at Tanisa before sitting down and examining his equipment. "By the way, Priest Marnak, that performance really lived up to the title of Demon Slayer." I smiled quietly as Carmen spoke in a more energetic voice to forcibly change the atmosphere. "I'm a bit embarrassed since I didn't act like a priest. Actually, it was a little bit like that in my opinion, too. By the way, your accuracy is impressive." Carmen replied with a smile. "Since I was little, the bow was like my only friend. I practiced really hard." While Carmen checked his bow's condition and collected the arrows, I checked the condition of my frost steel sword. Its blade hadn't worn at all, boasting of its endless stamina. Precious items do pay for their price. "Kill." I reciprocated the thought by patting my pocket. Mother's pride for the sword that she provided shone through. After sitting for a moment to catch our breath, Tanisa spoke up. "When are we going to leave? I could go right away. My remaining magic power is fine." Succus frowned before Carmen could reply. "Why are you talking about leaving again as soon as we sat down? You don't know since you just mutter spells from behind, but Marnak and I need a little more rest." Tanisa glanced at Succus, then turned to Carmen. It was an obvious show of disregard. Succus's face slowly heated up, but Carmen reacted quicker. "Stop. Tanisa, we're going to take a little break before heading on. Please be patient." At Carmen's firm words, Tanisa glanced at Succus and me before answering. "I think it's okay to leave right now. The 3 of us, except for that Succus, are still fine, so I would like to go forward and see the end of the ruins sooner rather than squabbling here. To be honest, I think that Succus is tired from throwing a tantrum." At the self-righteous wizard's words, I just chuckled. Indeed, most of the wizards I'd met so far were like that. Extremely self-centered and one-sided in attitude. In fact, this was rather polite for a wizard. Carmen cut in before Succus's face started burning again. "We're going to take a little more rest. I won't accept any further disagreement." We finally took a break from the uncomfortable atmosphere and settled to rest. I sat next to Succus and gently comforted him. Back on our feet after a while, we approached the black door, but it closed as if it was waiting. Yes, the enemy was too weak, considering the state of the ruins. Suddenly trapped in the square, we looked around, and at that moment, something huge fell from the ceiling. Bang! A heavy crash shook the ground. A pure white metal body without a single ounce of flesh on display and a blue jewel embedded in its forehead. The true guardian of this ruin revealed itself. Boom! The metal giant approached us. While Suckus stood there blankly, Tanisa pushed him. Move! Tanisa waved her hand with a soft murmur, and countless rocks rose and shot at the giant along with oscillating waves of wild magic. The giant reacted with a speed that wasn't commensurate with its size. As the blue jewel in the middle of his forehead shone, all the flying rocks lost their strength and fell to the floor. Then, the giant smashed Tanisa with his fist. Blood splattered. Shit, this is real trouble. The giant didn't stop. He swung his fist again and struck Suckus. He couldn't even scream out, but died instantly. I shouted at Carmen, who was standing in disbelief nearby. Do you want to live? Yes. I asked if you want to live. Carmen replied with a hasty nod. Yes, yes. Then stick your chin out. Yes. I slapped Carmen's chin as he looked at me with a puzzled expression. Quickly grabbing his now unconscious body, I shouted at the metal giant. There's a giant on my side, too. Mother, it's urgent. I don't even have time to pray. Send it right away. Kill. Bang. As the air ripped open, the giant of corruption stepped through and smashed the metal giant's head, sending it careening into a wall. Gawa. As soon as the giant of corruption started screaming, the metal giant rose again. I smiled at the overwhelming sight. He is a truly magnificent friend, as always. Mother thinks so too, right? Kill. Escape. Bang. A huge chunk of flesh and a chunk of metal collided violently. After slamming the metal giant with his shoulder, the giant of corruption opened its huge mouth and bit the metal giant's forearm. Gah! The metal giant raised his other hand and slammed it into the head of the giant of corruption. His head was crushed, and his flesh splattered. The decaying flesh crumbled before it even reached the floor. His headless body clenched his fists and smashed the metal giant's head again, slamming it against the wall with a crash. A new head popped out of the crushed flesh. Gah! In the meantime, I quickly harvested the corpses of Suckus and Tanisa. Suckus was 2.5 fingers worth, and Tanisa was 3 fingers. 1,100 points of divinity ran through my hands and seeped into my body. Divinity, 4,582. After confirming the amount of divinity I had gathered, I looked at the 2 giants still fighting. It looks like it will take quite some time for either side to win. Kill. I will stop playing and help out, as Mother says. I leaned Carmen's stunned body against the black door and pulled out the frost steel sword. First, my goal was the blue jewel in the middle of the white metal giant's forehead, the only part that stood out from that huge body. I thought that if I could break it somehow, there would be a change in the tides of battle. I'm going. Bang! I sprinted out and plunged into the collision between giants. Gah! The colossal fists of the giant of corruption responded to my movements, striking the metal giant's chest and sending it reeling back. I sprinted forward as it was pushed against the wall. The divinity of corruption pooled in my legs, activating the corruption arts. Increasing my force, I felt nauseous as I rocketed toward my goal. The air slapped me, but I ignored the pain and accelerated further. My leg muscles felt like they were about to explode, but at that moment I kicked off the ground. My body accelerated to its fullest and soared. I could see my reflection in the glassy eyes of the slowly rising metal giant. In that opaque reflected light, I brought my frost steel blade down. Clank! It pierced the blue gem and sent it flying. The metal giant moved even though the jewel on its forehead was broken. A huge metal hand swung for me without hesitation. Still floating in the air, I couldn't do anything to evade. Help! Gah! A hand of rotting flesh struck the metal giant's face. I quickly grabbed the forearm of the giant of corruption and hung on. The guardian pushed back, but the movement was noticeably slower than before, probably because the jewel was its main power source. R.O. Epsilon. I stumbled across the giant of corruption's body, jumped, and landed on the floor. Bang! The violence that followed was one-sided. The slowed metal giant was no match for the giant of corruption. The huge metal body was crushed and ceased operating. The victorious giant of corruption roared, "Gawa!" I smiled and tried to say something to praise him. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, 3 metal giants fell from the ceiling. How long will this keep going? Kill. Mother's answer, saying she wouldn't know even if I asked, felt a bit provoking. A new metal fist smashed through the giant of corruption's head before he could stand up. Seeing the giant of corruption being beaten unilaterally, I quickly decided, hold on a little longer, just until I run away. Gia! Bang! The giant of corruption was about to let out a roar, but the guardians wouldn't allow it. I turned around without hesitation and headed for the black door. When it opened earlier, it was definitely from the bottom up. Ha! I shoved my hand under the huge black door and gave my all. Of course, the door didn't even budge. Ah! While shouting, the divinity of corruption flowed through me, and a vivid dark green tattoo covered my body. My muscles screamed for help, and I was burning up as veins bulged across my skin. And finally, the gigantic black door began to slowly lift. I squeezed all my strength out, lifted the door to shoulder height, kicked Carmen lying next to me, and rolled in after him. You can go back. I didn't know if the giant of corruption, who the 3 metal giants were beating down, heard me, but I was sure he'd be fine. I believed so. Bang! The black door fell and slammed shut. I collapsed on the floor and spat out rotten guts in return for the corruption arts. Tui-ha. It was really hard. Mother. Kill. Mother's scolding continued, questioning why I had to bring that Carmen alive. I answered, leaning against the wall. I wanted to save the other two too, and they died so quickly that I couldn't. Kill. Rebuked for being too soft, I glanced at Carmen and said, besides, isn't this guy special? Even if I harvest him, I think it would be better to wait a little longer and watch his growth. Kill, kill. After a moment's silence, Mother gave her consent to the plan. The reason Mother of Corruption was convinced was that Carmen was a 3.5 fingers worth human. A human who could grow into a 4 fingers worth being would, when harvested, grant 10,000 divinity. That was Carmen Baltas. Besides, I liked his cheerful personality, so I wanted to save him. Kill. I smiled quietly at Mother's advice not to show affection so easily. Just because you don't want to give it to someone doesn't mean you can't give it, right? We become more affectionate as we spend time together. Don't be so angry. After taking a moment to breathe, I could move my body a little. This passage was too cramped for the metal giants to enter, but I decided it would be better to move since I didn't know what the future held. I picked up Carmen and walked slowly through the hallway shining with a soft blue light. After moving a little, Carmen released a low moan and came to his senses. Where am I? Do you feel better? Ugh, my head is very dizzy. I'll let you down. Let's rest here for a moment. Carmen gasped a few times while holding onto the wall, then sat down and asked me, are Succus and Tanisa really dead? Yes, unfortunately. Hearing my answer, he looked down at the floor with gloomy eyes. The moment the metal giant fell from the ceiling, we had to activate the key. My greed killed them both. Have you known each other for a long time? Carmen shook his head. No, I got to know them as recent hires. But that doesn't mean I'm not at fault. Where the hell is this place? Beyond the Black Gate. How did... As he was about to ask something, he just stopped speaking. It wouldn't be polite to ask about something you don't want to show, not if it's enough for you to knock me out. Besides, isn't Priest Marnak my savior now? I'll pay you back for this favor on the name of Baltas. I reached out my hand to Carmen and smiled. I'll be looking forward to it. Carmen smiled bitterly and took my hand. You absolutely cannot reject it. I'm the type of person who is willing to take everything offered. Anyway, if you're feeling better now, I think it'd be better to start walking. I didn't kill that metal giant. I just ran. Yes, let's go. We continued down to the end of the hallway. At the end of the hallway, there was a door with a blue pattern, but no ancient words were written. This was definitely the reward room. I said to Carmen, calming my beating heart, it seems we have reached the end of the ruins. Let's go inside. As I reached out and pushed it, the door gently opened. The altar towering in the middle of the room and the exit near it welcomed us warmly. 2 objects were placed on the altar, a necklace with beads the size of 2 thumbs and a sword. Carmen's eyes lit up when he saw the necklace. What was written in the book was true. Priest Marnak, I'm deeply ashamed, but can I ask for just one thing? Please give me that necklace. I will definitely reward you once we get out of here. I tilted my head at his desperate look. What is that necklace? Carmen picked up the necklace and explained it to me. This necklace is a thing called a flesh guide. When you pour your blood into this marble and think of the blood you want to find, the marble will swallow the blood and point in the direction of the blood you want to find. As I listened to his explanation, I remembered Carmen's origins. The bastard of Baltus. His father would definitely be in the royal capital, so I had an idea of who he was looking for. Carmen looked at my expression and nodded. Your thoughts are probably right. I'm looking for my mother whom I've never met. I looked into his black eyes and quickly put my thoughts together. A searching necklace had no meaning for me anyway. It was more profitable to hand over the necklace and collect the reward later. I said with a smile, Then can I have this sword? I'm not interested in anything other than this necklace. And if it wasn't for Priest Marnak in the first place, wouldn't I be dead already? Rather, it's a shame that you only have a sword to bring. In fact, even while Carmen was talking about the necklace, my eyes kept going to the sword. It had a very unusual appearance. Bang, 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 bang. Priest! Something was breaking down the door and rushing toward this room. I quickly picked up the relic's sword and shouted, Let's go to the exit. Boom! A gigantic metallic hand smashed the door and reached in for us. Just before the huge hand grabbed on, we succeeded in jumping into the exit by a hair's breadth. After falling into the white snowfields, I quickly pushed myself up and looked for Carmen. Are you all right? As white snowflakes fell from the sky, a hand in a black leather glove popped out. Carmen, covered in snow, looked at me and smiled. I don't want to see a piece of iron bigger than me for a while. I grinned. Me either. Proposal. Carmen looked at the arrowhead he thumbed with trembling eyes, his face stiff. If the marble showed no reaction after soaking in blood, the family he was looking for was already dead. After a long moment, he raised his head and said to me, Priest Marnak, could you please pray for me? I smiled and nodded. As much as you want. I tapped my pocket to call for the mother of corruption and whispered softly, Mother, did you hear that? Kill. I smiled quietly as she said I knew better than anyone that she didn't have that kind of ability. Carmen finally closed his eyes and stabbed his fingertip. Drops of blood dripped on the marble, and it devoured his blood. As Carmen watched it drink his blood, a tiny needle floated from the surface of the bloody artifact and began to point west. Oh, Mother, you're alive. Tears rolled down Carmen's face. He was always a very emotional man. He wiped away the tears and bowed his head deeply toward me. Thank you very much. This is all thanks to the priest. And how could I repay this favor? Anytime. You can pay it back with your sincerity. I'm a very patient person. I pushed the firewood into the bonfire. Carmen, gazing at the glowing orange light, carefully spoke. Is it okay if I make a suggestion? Of course, feel free to tell me. The night was long, and my ears are bored. Carmen hung the beaded necklace around his neck and opened his mouth slowly. I would like to extend your employment until I find my mother. The direction I have to go is to the west, so I will stop at the capital on the way and give you enough compensation to make up for this. I rummaged through the firewood with my kindling deep in thought. It was necessary to compare the profit I stood to gain by staying at Guy's with what I would gain by leaving with Carmen. Guy's had a demon lord who was friendly to me. We also laid a pretty solid foundation, thanks to their recent rampage. Perhaps, if I went back now, I would be able to receive a silver mercenary plaque from the Mercenary Guild. But there was a small problem. In Guy's, I had become so famous that I would draw attention everywhere I went. Those gazes were very uncomfortable for me, who wanted to lead a quiet life. With Gravo, on the other hand, what were the benefits of leaving Guy's with Carmen? First, although he was a bastard, he was a nobleman, the son of the Black Wolf Baltus, who everyone in the north knew. The mere fact that I was with him allowed me to go in and out of many places that weren't otherwise easily open to me, meaning I could find relics in more diverse places. I made up my mind. Of course, I'll cover all the travel expenses during the trip. I have enough money to afford it. I took some time because if I said I would go right away, he might feel like I was crazy about money. I patiently shoved in about 3 more pieces of firewood and then smiled. I'll help you find your mother. While searching for the relics of the mother of corruption, Carmen smiled brightly. Thank you. Asterisk. Aaron gave me a sullen look. So you're leaving? All of a sudden? Even though I've been treating you so well. I laughed awkwardly. It's not right now. I'm leaving tomorrow. It's the same today or tomorrow. It's still all of a sudden. Well, that's all right. Where are you going anyway? West. We're going to stop by the Capitol on the way. Erin tapped the reception desk and murmured, Capitol. She then pouted her lips and looked back at me. At first glance, there were movements that would make her look like a whining child, but they looked so natural and lovely to her. You're too mean. Kill. Mother was already drenched in the sense of her victory. Give me your hand. Yes? Okay. As I held my hand, Aaron placed a silver mercenary plaque onto my palm. It usually doesn't arrive so quickly, but I've worked hard on it. So what should you say to me? Thank you. She wagged her finger in front of my forehead. Aaron, staring at me with a sharp look in her eyes, flicked me. That's not it. Let's meet again. I'll definitely come back here to see you again. You have to say this. I smiled quietly without answering. In my wandering life, the promise to see her again wasn't something I could keep. So, I chose silence instead of lying. Aaron let out a deep sigh. Seriously, Priest Marnak, if you live like that, you won't be able to date before you die of old age. Kill. Of course, Mother's shout, saying it wasn't her business, didn't reach Aaron. Instead, she had her usual mischievous smile again. See you again. See you again? Yes. Let's meet again when you get a chance. I think that opportunity may come to Priest Marnak a little earlier than expected. Kill. What does that mean? Aaron smiled softly and slapped me on the back. You said you were going to meet the Lord before leaving. Go quickly. The Lord is waiting for you, so you can't chat with the Mercenary Guild receptionist. Yes. Absolutely not. I asked as I was being pushed away. What does that mean? You don't have to know. Just be curious. That's my punishment to Priest Marnak. Asterisk. Try this. It's very delicious. Quickly. The elaborate prosthetic moved as if alive, pushing a bowl of cookies closer to me. I picked up one and put in my mouth. Again, there was no taste. The demon watched my face with a smile. You seem very curious about something. On the way home, I was given a naughty question. It's really difficult because I kept thinking about it. I guess that's life. The problems that keep holding on to your heart never fully leave us. By the way, I heard you were leaving? Yes. I raised my head to face the demon. His hair, which had boasted of its abundance last time I left, had lost its strength and was droopy. I said with regret. The side effects came very quickly. Ha ha. Don't look at me so pitifully. Aren't some people born without hair? I'm just one step closer to being human. Are you going to the Capitol? Yes. I heard so and prepared this in advance. The demon handed me a white envelope. I accepted it and asked, I wanted to give you some money, but as you know, I don't have a penny left in my pocket, and I'm losing even my slush funds to recover guys. Really? The demon, pulling out his pockets and shaking them, grinned. So, since you're going to the Capitol, I wrote a letter of introduction. If you have trouble, you can open the envelope and ask my friend for help. Although it might be better to not visit him, since he has an annoying personality. Ha ha ha. A demon's friend? He didn't tell me if he was a friend of the human threatened Filian or the demon. However, well, it was always good to have various means at hand. Thank you. The demon faced me and bowed his head. I hope that your trip will always be enjoyable. Is that a blessing as a demon or a blessing as a human? The demon replied with a chuckle. I have blessed you as a friend, Priest Marnak. May you always have fun. Life is always too short. Asterisk. Let's go. Priest. Yes. Early in the morning, Carmen and I walked through the snow that had fallen overnight to leave guys behind. And like that, we left guys. Asterisk. A few days later, we were walking toward the west, where the marble pointed as usual when the faint scent of blood caught my senses. Blood. Yes. It's very close, and it's coming towards us. Carmen drew his bow and knocked an arrow. The bloody scent gradually grew stronger. Something was approaching fast. Bang! Ki! A body covered in pure white fur and 8 legs. A snowy spider the size of a wagon skittered out. Carmen shouted, "Snow spider! Why is it on the road?" I was confused as well. Why would a monster attack us while I was here? This was by no means natural. Carmen, I'll deal with it. Watch and shoot when I signal. Yes. Instead of the frost steel sword, I removed the relic sword from the ruins. In fact, the reason I asked Carmen to help me was that I wanted to test this relic. The past few days had been so peaceful that I hadn't had the chance. When I swung the sword, the blade began to howl. Waha wonk. Yes, this relic sword I got was a chainsaw sword with a chainsaw taking the place of an ordinary blade. Kill. Mother gave the sword the name, the Butcher. I raised my roaring sword and ran at the snow spider. Ki! Huge blood-soaked legs approached relentlessly to pierce me. Without hesitation, I swung the Butcher. Waha wong! The rough metal blades rotated and ripped apart the beast's front legs. I didn't stop there and cut through its body, and the Butcher ripped its abdomen open. Kai! The snow spider let out a terrifying screech as it turned into minced meat. The blade's rotation slowly stopped. I wiped away the splattered fluid from my face, which was extremely sticky. I must prepare a place to wash in advance when using this sword. It splatters too much flesh and blood. Carmen stood stunned and looked at me, bewildered. As expected, relics are relics. The power is really great. Kill. At Mother's warning, I grabbed the Butcher again and shouted. More is coming. 2, not 3. Ki! 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 3 snow spiders popped out. Snow spiders certainly weren't group creatures either. Carmen, this time just shoot whenever you can. Yes. As an arrow cleaved the air, I started the Butcher again and kicked it off the ground. Wow! Kelton, a white wall piled with snow from the night. The priest of the blue flame stood before the east gate of guys. There was no particular reason for choosing guys from among the many options. However, she had heard a rumor about a demon slayer who said he had killed a huge demon with a single sword. As she entered guys, following a simple identification check, crowds of busy workers filled her sight. The once destroyed city was slowly and steadily regaining its shape. Seeing the traces of destruction caused by the demon, the blue flame priest raised her heart's evaluation of the demon slayer a little higher. Across the city being rebuilt, the place where the blue flame priest headed was the mansion of the Lord. When she announced she was of the blue flame of the Holy Fire Church, the guards rushed out and announced their visit to the Lord of Guys, Threadenfillion. With their guidance, she was taken straight to the Lord's offices. Welcome to Guys. Reticent eyes and a cold atmosphere greeted her. Although his hair was slowly falling out, he was a man with a sense of weight enough to make such minor flaws invisible. I'm sorry that the reception room collapsed, and I had to be rude greeting you here in the office. Besides, my physical condition is what it is. The Lord gently raised the wooden prosthetic arm, buried himself further in the chair, and waved for her to sit. It's fine. By the way, it's rare for the blue flame of Holy Fire Church to make a pilgrimage in person. So what brings you here? Please take a look at this. Have you ever seen this man? What the blue flame priest offered was a single picture. This painting depicted the face of a thief who stole the sacred relics of the Holy Fire Church. Officially, this holy relic thief didn't exist. Although only relics of little value were stolen from them, they were caught after a few days of pursuit. Since he was already dead, there was no official wanted badge with this person's face. So, the blue flame priest inevitably had to draw an impression about this man herself based on the ranger's description. The problem was that the picture was so bad that to call it simply crude was a compliment. In addition, the person who presented this painting had the baseless confidence that she drew it quite well. However, as soon as the demon saw the image, he knew with an extraordinary intuition that it depicted Marnak's face. He kept his face carefully blank. May I ask who the heck is this guy that the blue flame of the Holy Fire Church is personally chasing after him? The blue flame priest sat down and looked into Threadenfillion's eyes. What is behind those hollow eyes? After a while, the priest's mouth slowly opened. It is for personal reasons to the church. Is that so? The demon slowly examined the blue flame priest. Her long blue hair was neatly tied together, and her cold blue eyes showed no emotion. Seeing a beauty that could draw anyone's attention at least once, the demon fell into thought. I don't think she's chasing after him for a good reason. I don't have to tell her. If that's all you need, you may go. It's in the middle of a busy day, so making any more time for you is a little difficult. Yes. At the Lord's clear order, she took the picture without regrets, put it in her pocket, and stood. She hadn't come to the Lord's mansion with high expectations in the first place. Leaving the mansion and going out onto the streets, the blue flame priest walked down the street, grabbed random passersby, and held out the painting. But no one recognized that the crude painting was of Marnak. NES. Did he go to another city? Not realizing that her drawing was wrong, she concluded that she had picked the wrong city. I heard you were assigned to the capital? What a shame. I'm going to miss you. I'll come to visit when I get a chance. There's nothing to do here. Stop with those empty words. All right, take care of yourself on the way. Travel is always dangerous. I'm not going alone, so don't worry. The word capital tickled her ear, popping out of a conversation between a red-haired woman and a middle-aged woman at the grocer's stand. Capital. Even if she went to another city now, the probability of finding him was extremely low unless there was any other way to search. The pursuit now stemmed from her small suspicion, as there was no evidence that he was still alive. So, the blue flame of the Holy Fire Church solidified her determination. She'd use the intelligence agents in the capital to find this fugitive. Asterisk. Wong. The butcher ground down the head of the second snow spider. Gooey fluids splashed me, and I really wanted nothing more than a bath now. Kiee. The last snow spider rushed me, but I wasn't alone. Shoot. An arrow pierced its forelimbs, delaying the attack. Yes, a chance like this was enough. The butcher started with a loud roar. Wahong. This one turned into mincemeat too. Finally, the last snow spider fell to the floor. I looked around for more, but the coast was clear. I beckoned to Carmen to relax his hold on his bow. Looks like this is the last one. Is that so? I brushed off the fluids on the butcher and wiped my face with the hem of my priest's robe. I still felt uncomfortable with the goop in my hair, but after wiping my face clean, I felt a little better. Carmen, approaching without a moment wasted, pulled out the sword he wore around his waist and skillfully cut through the spider's shell. What are you doing? I'm collecting the venom sacs from the spiders. Their venom has a great anesthetic effect, so it's useful in many ways. I smiled as I watched. As a result of spending more time together, I could see Carmen had a strong sense of responsibility, unlike a master of a noble family. How the hell do you know that? I often participate in monster hunting. Isn't it the best way to improve your bow skills? Of course, to take out the poison sac, the snow spider's stomach had to be cut, and in the process, more gunk was inevitably splashed everywhere. Let me do that since I'm already coated. Just tell me where the poison sac is. Carmen laughed, wiping the fluid from his face. It's a half-day drive to Kelton's next city, anyway. I'll teach you how to collect the poison sac, so we'll finish it together and go to the city to take a shower. Good idea. We took 2 each, collected the poison sacs of the 4 snow spiders, and set off again for Kelton. And not long after, we met who owned the blood coating the leg's forelimbs. Broken carriages and blood and flesh covered the road. Carmen looked around with a hardened expression. It looks like the spiders that attacked us did this. But it's strange. Carmen tilted his head as he rummaged through the damaged boxes. Compared to the size of the wagon, the amount of items left here is too small. Were they on the way back after disposing of the items? There aren't even corpses here. There was blood and tattered remains of organs, but there were no corpses. The snow spider was a monster that sucked the blood out of its prey, so there was no way there weren't corpses. Priest Marnak. Yes. Carmen had already gone quite far in looking around. I saw the clear traces of the snow spiders carved over the snowfields, accompanied by bloodstains leading into the forest depths. Carmen pointed to them. It seems that the 4 we caught weren't all. It's really strange. When we get to Kelton, we must inform the Lord about this before there is more damage. I nodded. There is absolutely no reason for us here to track down those spiders and uncover the truth of the case ourselves. I think the same. We quickly checked the wagon to see if there was anything we could pack. Still, most of the remaining items were broken to the point of being unusable, so we set off again without finding anything else. Now, walking a little faster, we finally reached Kelton, and the city walls were in the distance. It's good to inform the Lord, but it's good manners to wash your body first, and I think it'll make us feel better. Carmen nodded. It's definitely worse than I expected. As we slowly approached Kelton's west gate, the guards began to move with a surprised expression. Before long, a guard jumped out and spoke to us. "Itch, how did you get here? How did you get here?" I looked at Carmen. Both of us were confused. "We came walking. Didn't you run into monsters on the way?" The guard stopped talking. He seemed to realize how stupid he was asking such a question, given our state. Carmen smiled bitterly and said to the guard, "Can you tell us what's happening in Kelton right now?" The guard swallowed hard and answered in a trembling voice. "Kelton's roads have been blocked for 3 days now by monsters." Blocked by monsters? Had we just broken through the siege? A more senior guard from the city came out to greet us. "Lord Strand wants to see you too. We will guide you to the Lord's mansion." I answered, pointing to my head. "It's a personal opinion, but wouldn't it be polite to see the Lord after we showered?" The guard looked between Carmen and me. "Perhaps the Lord will allow you to use the mansion's bath." The Lord's bath. It was a very attractive offer. As I slowly turned to look at Carmen, he nodded slightly. I replied with a smile. "Let's go now." Asterisk. The hot steam rising from the warm water pleasantly brushed my cheeks. After washing my body roughly, I soaked myself in the prepared private bath to my heart's content. K-I-L-L. Mother was already enjoying the hot water. The fact that a private bathroom is available for guests fits a proper lord. My feelings for the Lord have already penetrated the roof with this warm water alone. "Kill." Mother agreed by turning her palm over in the water. After I had finished taking a hot bath, I put on the new clothes the mansion servants had prepared. I wanted to lie down and take a nap, but of course I couldn't do that. As I headed to the reception room, following the guidance of the servants, I found Carmen already there speaking with the Lord. I entered the room and bowed my head. "Forgive me for being late." "It's fine. Please sit over there." The Lord of Kelton was a man who looked a little chubby and gentle, but he had a very youthful face. He must have been in his mid-20s at most. As I sat beside Carmen, the Lord gave me a friendly smile. "Are you Priest Marnak, the demon slayer of guys? Really, you don't know how nice it is to have you come to our city." I bowed my head slightly, then answered, "I'm not that great of a person. I just put out the breath of a dying demon, and the real demon hunting was done by the 3 Reformation's priests who gave their lives. Slaying even a dying demon isn't something anyone can do. This priest Marnak is a humble man." Just as the conversation was about to grow longer, Carmen changed the subject. "I heard that the city is under siege." The Lord of Kelton, Strinpelkor, nodded, and his face turned gloomy. "That's right. The reason I called the 2 of you here has something to do with just that. As you 2 may have already heard, this siege isn't normal." The Lord, licking his lips, said something very serious. "It was all done by the worshipper of the evil god." Acting. Evil god. It sounded like a very bad name, but in reality, it wasn't particularly special. To put it simply, he was classified as an evil god by the main denominations of the current continent. The Church of Corruption was also one of the denominations classified as worshipping evil spirits in that way. Of course, unlike the current churches of the evil god, those were subjugated a long time ago. Unlike the mainstream denominations that cooperated without any conditions when it came to opposing the evil gods, unfortunately, there had been no cooperation between those who worshipped entities designated as evil. In addition, it was unclear whether this being was classified as such because it went crazy or due to persecution. I asked the Lord, "Isn't the siege too large for one worshipper of an evil god to maintain?" The Lord's face, which was too innocent, grew gloomier. According to the priests who sense the deity, at least 4 different denominations are working together to besiege Kelton. The criteria for judging the divinity the priests felt belonged to an evil god was very simple. The energy was similar to a block list made by the gods, so the moment they felt their divinity, the priests couldn't help but be overcome with an instinctive disgust. The problem was that the block list of these gods wasn't renewed at all, even if the denomination of the evil god was completely subjugated. So even though the Church of Corruption was overthrown in the past, the priests of the present age felt great disgust at it. Anyway, something was really wrong here. Cooperation between worshippers? It's not common for those who worship evil to cooperate. Do you have any guesses as to what they want? The Lord shook his head. I can't even guess. No matter how much I think about it, Kelton is just a common city that doesn't have anything special to say. Huh. There was deep concern in his sigh. To think that something like this happened as soon as I took office, if my father were still alive, he would have come up with a solution. A middle-aged knight with a reticent impression behind him whispered into the Lord's ear. Perhaps he was advised not to show weakness in front of his guests. As soon as he heard the whisper, the Lord put on a brighter expression. Still, it's winter, so there's enough food in the city, and the soldiers' morale isn't bad. The situation is stable, but the problem is that no one knows that Kelton is isolated because of the sudden siege. I could slowly guess the proposal that the Lord was about to ask. So, we need a small squadron to break through the monster siege and deliver the news of Kelton to other cities. Yeah, I thought so. Even though the Lord was very sorry to impose, he was willing to ask us to risk our lives because I was a priest who worshipped the gods. Priests didn't spare their lives when dealing with the evil gods, so he must have calculated that I would have no choice but to grant his request. Excellent. In fact, as long as I was pretending to be a priest who served the goddess of maintenance, I couldn't refuse. It was checkmate. Kill. Ignoring Mother's harsh cry to slap the Lord in the face and run away, I answered with a smile. I'll help. For now, let's accept and think about it a bit more. Priest Marnak. An unexpected reaction came from Carmen sitting next to me. How can you accept it so blindly? If you accept, you should at least hear the details of the operation before making a decision. It was a welcome rebuke, since every word he spoke was full of concern for me. Was this what travel companions were for? However, the Lord's expression grew uncomfortable, so I restrained Carmen. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. If it's related to the worshippers of the evil god, as a priest, I have to help. As I spoke, I hoped my inner thoughts would reach him. Please make more of a fuss, Carmen. That way, the rewards from the Lord will increase. Besides, I've decided what to bring with me. Carmen spoke to the Lord as if he had heard my telepathy. I will also join this operation. The Lord wiped away his sweat and murmured. It is certainly an honor for a son of Baltas to voluntarily engage in such dangerous work, but the Lord's reluctance toward Carmen was because he was the son of the Black Wolf, Inces Baltas, even though he was an illegitimate bastard. He was worried about what might happen if the Black Wolf's son died. I have the skills to protect myself, so the Lord doesn't have to worry too much. But I listened as they went back and forth. The Lord tried several times to convince Carmen, but he had already decided to follow me. Strimpelkor let out a deep sigh. Okay, you're so determined there's nothing I can do about it, and I promise to give you the best possible support I can. Carmen bowed his head deeply to express his gratitude. I decided to chime in then. Lord, is it okay if I ask you a question? He answered me with a more depressing look than when he talked about the worshippers of the evil god. Speak at ease. Can you give me that thing? I reached over and pointed to one of the ornaments. I was pointing to a wide bowl, but the Lord glanced at the bowl and asked me, That bowl? Yes. I can feel the protection of the goddess I serve from that vessel. It was a blatant lie. No, just half a lie. It was true that there was a blessing in that vessel, but it wasn't from the maintenance goddess. Really? It's just an ornament anyway. You there, move the bowl to the priest's room. As the Lord gave instructions, the employees bowed their heads slightly, then carefully picked up the bowl and disappeared. I smiled. When will the operation begin? As the monsters are gathering more and more, it is better to start the operation as soon as it gets dark. We plan to do it tonight. There is still a little time left, so why don't you take a nap in the meanwhile? We will. Carmen and I left the gloomy Lord behind and parted to our respective rooms. As I entered the room given to me, I saw the bowl on the table. Kill. I nodded at Mother's words that I got something hard to find. That's right. I never dreamed I could find something of the Seekers of the Stream. The god worshipped by the flow seekers had powers related to water, and the protection hanging onto this vessel was also related to water. The Lord didn't seem to notice the protection blessing, but even if he did, he couldn't use this vessel. Because, except for me, a sacred object was something only priests who worshipped that god could use. On the other hand, holy relics were objects that anyone could use without having to worship the god. Naturally, making a holy relic required more complicated than a simple blessing. That was why each church paid special attention to recovering their holy relics. Let's try it. As I touched the bowl and expressed the blessing, water gushed from inside the bowl. I don't have to worry about washing my face after using the butcher. Kill. I pulled out the frost steel sword and submerged the blade in the water. As Mother explained, this water had a minor side effect. So when a weapon was dipped in this way, a little bit of the protection seeped into the blade for a while after it was taken out. I then took out the butcher and put it on the table next to me. When the frost steel sword had absorbed enough protection, I thought of immersing the butcher. While I waited, I moved to the bed. Mother, do you have any guesses about this incident? Kill. I chuckled at the answer. Indeed, how could she know? Well, that's right. I'll take my chances and look into it a little more. There was only one thing I was worried about. If this world was really in the game I used to play, there should be something like the main quest. I was worried this might be a warning signal that it had started, but I didn't know anything about its contents. I gently patted Mother's hand as it jumped out of my pocket and played on my chest. Well, no matter what, I have no choice but to try at least once, right? Kill. I smiled at Mother's question, asking what I was talking about all of a sudden. Nothing. Asterisk. Hiya. As Kelton's gate opened, 5 horses jumped out and raced through the snow. The wind slapped at my face. The horses didn't like me, but they reluctantly followed my orders as I led them. Shortly after they started running along the road, a dozen different cries followed. Ki, Ka, Gur. Keep running. Carmen's call cut through the air. Of the 5 participating in this operation, except for Carmen and me, 3 were priests. 2 of them were priests of the Restoration Church, which worshipped the goddess of healing and health, and both were huge. The other was a reluctant Reformation Church priest, wearing their unique white armor. As the monsters drew closer, the Reformation Church priest took out the battle hammer behind his back and swung it. Libra of Retribution. A hammer of light fell. The beast's screams could be heard from behind us, but there was no time to look back. When the 2 priests of Restoration Church chanted, a white light covered our steeds. The horses, not tired anymore, kept galloping. However, as if to ridicule our struggle, the monsters kept coming. The time was near. I shouted the lines I had prepared in advance for Carmen. I'll get their attention. Carmen exclaimed. What kind of bullshit is that? Even if it's you, Priest Marnak, it's unreasonable to stand alone against that horde. But if we keep going like this, they'll catch up. We can lose them. The arrow loose from his bowstring pierced the head of a beast about to spring from the roadside. You know better than anyone that we can't lose them this way. I'll stay. If we all work together, we can definitely do it. Don't do it. Priest Marnak. I smiled and looked at Carmen. Reinforcements, Carmen. Be sure to bring them. I let go of the horse's reins and jumped off. Priest Marnak. The priest from the Reformation Church and the Restoration Church passed by me and bowed their heads to pay tribute to my sacrifice. After answering them with a nod, I drew the butcher from my back and smiled. Wasn't my line, just now a little cool. Kill. Hearing Mother's praise that my acting was very good, I started the butcher's engine. Wahong. A harsh startup sound resounded across the dark night. As if in response, the mixed roar of a horde of monsters replied. I raised the butcher and walked out to welcome them. Now it was time to find out what the hell was going on in the heads of the worshippers who gathered here. Encounter. Red blood splattered across the snow, followed by the severed head of a beast. As I lowered myself, a pair of white claws cleaved where my head had just been. Wong! The saw blades ground the clawed monster's head next. Blood and flesh poured out, steaming from the cold ground. An endless wave of beasts and monsters continued to approach. There was no time to catch my breath. Kaiawea, a monster resembling a black panther, attacked next. and I swung the butcher and cut it into chunks of meat. The white priest uniform I wore was stained with blood and bodily fluids, but I kept mechanically grinding through the monsters. I continued my way through the woods, relying on the faint moonlight to see. As the Lord said, there were 4 places where I could feel a divinity wafting from. I approached the nearest. Kill! Taking the chance while I was briefly lost in thought. Sharp teeth pierced my shoulder. I stretched out my left hand and crushed the beast's head, feeling its brain pushing through my clasped fingers. The teeth marks it left in my flesh slowly healed. Even though they know I'm approaching, they don't seem to have any intention of meeting me. I don't think this is a nice way to treat one's guests. Kill. Another warning from Mother that an attack was coming from behind. I turned to let the attack pass by. Waha Wang. I wiped my face with my collar to clean my eyes of gore. Looking around, I realized that the composition of the gathering monsters had changed slightly. The number of snow spiders was increasing. If every day is like this, I might have to carry a bathtub rather than a wash basin. Kill. I grinned at her scolding me to concentrate on the battle. After all, the only one who cares about me is Mother. Kai-yai. A snow spider rushed past. I cut off its forelimbs, shoved the butcher into its head, and then started the engine. Wah-ha-ong. The shock caused the spider to die without a scream. It was a delightful weapon that I had no choice but to like. But we were nearing our destination. It was a huge cave, large enough to be a giant's home. The beast that pursued me didn't dare follow me inside, however. No epsilon. Ki-yi. Except for them, the snow spiders. After dealing with the spiders again, I was able to look around. Although the spider's remains had obscured a lot, a few splatters of dark red were clearly visible on the ground. The color, distinctly different from the spiders, was obviously human. With the butcher in hand, I weaved through the pieces of broken wood and shards here and there to reach the back of the cave. The attacked wagon was empty because these monsters had taken the items. I could feel the divinity trembling not far away. The worshipper of the evil god crouched deep in there, waiting for me to walk in. It's a very creepy invitation, but it's almost cute that I could see right through them. Kill. Mother, don't worry. I won't let my guard down. In preparation for the battle, I took a deep breath and moved slowly. My body began to cool off. As I delved further inside, I found cocoons tangled with threads. Tearing through one, a desiccated corpse fell out. It's right to clean it up when you've finished eating, but to think you've decorated the cave with all your leftovers. It's a little hard to understand. The further I went in, the more cocoons I found. How many humans had they eaten? It was too much to eat in only 3 days. When I reached the end of the passage, a huge cavern greeted me. If the passageway I had walked so far was a path for giants to pass through, this was a place for their village to live. I silently traversed it, feeling the divinity shimmer above. Come out. I know everything. As my voice echoed off the walls, several screeches responded. Kai-yi-ye. 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 Several spiders fell from the ceiling. Thud. Huge legs, each the size of a wagon, attached to a white body the size of a moving building, and 8 red eyes, each bigger than a human head. The queen of snow spiders revealed her presence alongside several of her peons. Kai! Her roar was deafening. I gripped the butcher tighter. Kill. Mother warned me that I could die if I were careless. That gigantic spider queen had divinity running through every nook and cranny of her gigantic claws. Any wounds they left would be impossible for me to regenerate. Death felt closer than it ever had before. Fear tensed my neck. Mother, draw it. A dark green light ran down my body and crawled over the rocky floor. The divinity of corruption drew the line at the cave's entrance, the line that the living cannot cross. This prevented the divinity of corruption from leaking out of the cavern. I need your power, Mother of Corruption. As always, Mother answered my wishes. The air shattered, and a huge giant jumped out. Gudhu. The giant of corruption didn't utter a roar, as usual, but turned its head and looked at me. I laughed awkwardly. I'm sorry I left you last time. Gawa. Hearing my apology, the giant of corruption let out a contented roar at the Spider Queen. At the same time, The dark green marks of corruption revealed themselves on my skin. I took out everything I could. My heart was pounding wildly. The fear of death was still choking me, but that too was a little fun. Mother, tonight, I will dedicate the head of that man-eating spider to you. Kill. The battle began with Mother's warning to not get hurt. Ga-wea, Kaiawa. The giant of corruption sprinted across the cave toward the queen of snow spiders. The spider queen raised her claws and slammed them down on the giant's head. They crushed the flesh and dug deep into its body. At the same time, the headless giant's fists smashed into the head of the queen. Kaiya! The spider queen screeched. After their great collision, countless snow spiders fell around me. So the reason I didn't run into a single one on the way here was that they were all gathered inside. Wahawong. The butcher let out a harsh startup sound. Kaiyai, Kaiyai, Kaiyai. Using my strength amplified by the corruption arts, I kicked off the floor and threw myself into the swarm. The walls were soon coated in gore. I shredded the spiders and observed the battle between the giant and the queen. Unfortunately, the giant of corruption was small compared to the queen. She was rough, twice the size of the giant, and while he fought desperately, it was clear that she had the upper hand. I had to help, but the snow spiders prevented me from approaching. Wong! I ground down another snow spider. It wasn't possible to win this way. If the queen defeated the giant of corruption, I would surely die here. I made up my mind. I sent all the divinity in my body to my legs. The tattoo on my legs glowed a vivid dark green color. I squeezed the strength of my muscles to the limit and kicked off the ground. The air resistance smacked into me, but I flew. Kiye! Dozens of mouths opened to expose sharp teeth below me. I clenched my teeth, kicked one of the snow spiders in the head, and jumped again. In that brief moment, their claws left deep scars across my back. My body screamed for help, but I suppressed my human instincts. I suppressed the longing for the life I felt. I could do more. I could go further. Bang! After a dozen leaps, I finally managed to escape the siege. My body was already a mess, but hope shone brighter than ever. Run, Gawa! The wretched giant of corruption rushed to the queen. Kai! The queen and the giant collided, and the cave shook violently. My body, accepting divinity to its limit, hit the giant's back, and I ran up it to reach the spider. There was only one place I was aiming for, the border that separated the cephalothorax and abdomen located in the middle of its huge torso. Wahawang. The butcher saw blade spun wilder than ever in response to my wish. Hiya. The butcher's chain burrowed into the queen's carapace. Kaiya. Her body shook. I clutched the hilt of the sword and kept wiggling it in deeper. Gawa. The giant grabbed the queen's body and stretched. Boom. Finally, the queen's gigantic abdomen couldn't bear its weight and tore off. With only her head and chest intact, the queen let out a fading scream. Kia, I won. I've won. I smiled triumphantly, covered in goop. And then, a woman protruded from the dead queen's head. The beautiful woman with pure white hair raised her red eyes and shouted. Fuck! I replied with a smile. As expected, it's a human. The woman glared at me, baring white teeth. Fuck! Where the fuck did you come from? You're also a fucking worshiper of an evil god, no different than me. Do you know how fucking long it took to subjugate this queen? Do you? I walked slowly over to the woman. What is the purpose behind Kelton's siege? Why do I have to tell you that? Kaiwea, it hurts. You son of a bitch. I dug the frost steel sword into her shoulder a bit deeper, then softly smiled and asked, what is the purpose behind Kelton's siege? Bright crimson eyes stared at me with clear hatred. You fucking bastard. Fuck. It hurts. It hurts. I slowly turned the sword clockwise. The woman's shrieks echoed through the cavern. What is the purpose behind Kelton's siege? Tears welled up in the woman's eyes. Fuck. 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 I won't tell you even if I die. Bastard. Goodbye then. What? Are you? The woman's severed head rolled down over the queen's body and hit the floor. I smiled as I wiped the blood from the blade. I think about it every time, mother, but I like murderers. It's okay to kill them without much guilt. I will dedicate this woman's body to you, and please accept it. This white-haired demon worshipper was a 3.5-finger-worth human. 1,000 divinity flowed from her decaying and disappearing body and permeated my flesh. Divinity, 5,582. I've crossed the halfway mark. I chuckled. I'm already thrilled to think of the next worshiper waiting for me. Really? Will any tell me the truth about this? Kill. Did you say the third one? I'll bet on the fourth then. I sent back the giant of corruption and exited the cave. The night wasn't over, but a bright light illuminated the dark land. I was truly surprised by this sight. They really got me this time. The city I had left, Kelton, was burning in the darkness. Firm. A chubby man ran from the fire. The lord of the burning Kelton, Strin ran nonstop, even as his lungs burned. His body felt heavier today. He had some deep regrets about not exercising regularly, but what could he do? It was too late to regret after something happened. Everything exploded from within the city. After Inces Balta's illegitimate son, Carmen Baltas had set out to request assistance leading the 4 priests. The monsters attacked. Strimpelkor thought they would be able to stop the offensive, and there were a few good reasons behind that judgment. High walls, enough soldiers and food stockpiled, enemies without weapons to attack their barriers. It was a fight that couldn't be lost unless they opened the gates and engaged their enemies in the streets. But the monsters came out from inside the town, and Kelton was filled with the screams of its citizens. Pant, pant. He could reach the secret passage underground if he ran a little further. It was common sense for a wise lord to make 1 or 2 secret passages just in case. While his vassals sacrificed their lives to earn him time, he had to survive to avenge them. However, Strinpelkor's firm resolve wasn't fulfilled. A dark shadow rose and grabbed his ankle. Strinpelkor lost his balance, hit the ground rolling, and slammed into a wall. 3 people walked slowly out of the alleyway by the burning mansion. The purple-eyed beauty in the lead frowned down at Strinpelkor. This pig bastard runs pretty fast despite his looks. Oh, so should I call him a pig rabbit? As the man behind her gestured, the shadow holding Strin's ankle disappeared. Enough with the bullshit. What is the status of the incarnation? The blonde woman standing silently in the back answered. It's very unstable because of the sudden change. As you know, extracting divinity from life isn't an easy task. Besides, the preparations weren't quite finished yet, and someone had lost the rats who escaped from the castle, so I had to start reassessing the plan. The chances of success have grown slimmer. The blonde woman's rebuke was directed to the woman with shining violet eyes. The woman with violet eyes frowned. Do you think I lost them because I wanted to? I tried fucking hard. Those 2 fucking muscle pigs from the Restoration and the Reformation church fanatic gave away their lives. Still, that bitch, Layla, didn't even send a single spider. Imagine if she had. I would have caught even the last one with a bow. The flame flickered. The blonde woman slowly blinked. By the way, Layla isn't coming. It's not the first time spider-loving bitch glued herself to a spider. She must be fucking the spiders. Crack. The man stepped on the fallen lord's neck and crushed it. Enough. Nothing good will come from fighting with each other. Besides, since one of the rats escaped, the fanatics will flock like ants here. You didn't forget how many years we've been working on this, right? The woman with violet eyes glanced at the man. Do you think I haven't been impatient during these 3 years? And why do you keep acting like the leader? Hey, he's even moodier today. Didn't you fucking suck him last night? It's been a while since you 2 got together, and I don't have a fucking man, so I'm always sleeping alone, but still, I have to hear from you bastards getting at it every night. Really? Talking shit just because I let 1 rat escape. I don't even want to live anymore. Alphanu. The flame flickered. The blonde woman didn't bother to hide her loathing anymore. Although she was forced to cooperate because of orders from her church, this frivolous, filthy-mouthed bitch had a knack for always pissing her off. Make way for a madman and a bull. Reflecting on that, the blonde woman suppressed her anger. I'm going to adjust the status of the incarnation, and it will be completed soon. That's made with the lives of the people in this city, but you act like it couldn't be made without you, huh? The flame flickered. The man sighed deeply and wiped his face. Stop. Please stop, Parna. I will hold Layla responsible for letting one escape. So can't you please stop? The woman with violet eyes smirked. Then I can shut up whenever. Again, the flame flickered, and the fire vomited something out. Wahong! The sound of screeching metal assailed their ears. A flaming assassin leaped from the fire and cut the man's body in half with a rotating saw blade. Parna, the woman with violet eyes, was left stunned with wide-open eyes. What the? Wah-ah-wong. The saw didn't stop, cutting the man in half lengthwise and, once done, moved on to the blonde woman standing next to him. Pieces of intestine and blood splashed onto Parna's face. Marnak, waiting for his opportunity, endured the pain of burning alive with a wide smile. It makes a lot of sense for Mother to say that it's cheating to kill the third person without asking anything. But these guys deal with divinity. That means there's a possibility that they could leave a scar on your son's body. Mother wouldn't want me to get hurt while trying to interrogate someone, right? Parna couldn't quite understand what the man in front of her was talking about. Whatever it was, she only knew she was fucked. So, she started using her head. She needed a way to survive this self-talking mad killer, and she couldn't die here. The man took a bowl out of the air and poured water over himself. When the flames were finally extinguished, all of his body hair was burned off, revealing a bald head. Marnak stroked his head, and one day, he could return to his original, full-haired self. Still, Marnak's heart ached slightly at the immediate emptiness. Mother, I want to avoid hiding in the fire again. This is so painful and empty. The man's self-talk was never-ending. Parna gulped and slowly opened her mouth as politely as possible. Hey. As if he had forgotten about her, Marnak exclaimed with a smile, revealing a row of white teeth. Why have you sieged Kelton? Asterisk. And that's it. Really? That's huge. Luckily, when I asked the question, the woman, who introduced herself as Parna, spat out everything she knew as if she had been waiting for someone to ask. The story was simpler than I thought. Their purpose was to sacrifice all the humans in this city to create an incarnation, a moving mass of divinity. They worked in hiding in this city for 3 years for that plan. Originally, 5 more days of preparation were needed to create the perfect incarnation. Still, the operation was rushed because they had lost Carmen. I was so glad that Carmen managed to get out. Once I put Parna behind me, I harvested the corpses of the man and woman I killed. The man was worth 3.5 fingers, and the woman was worth 3. Divinity, 7,582. I put the unlimited refill wash basin into one of the 2 compartments in my inventory and returned it to Parna. She looked stunned. What the hell did you just do? What do you mean? I took their lives and gave them to my mother. That easy. It is common sense that a complex process is required to convert life into divinity. I grinned and brought the butcher's blade to Parna's throat. You're talking a lot all of a sudden. If you ask, do I have to give you an answer as to how or why? Guide me to the place where the monster called Incarnation is. She glanced at the butcher's blade, the saws still coated in blood, then swallowed. Okay. I followed Parna, picked up the frost steel sword I tossed aside before I hid, and strapped it to my waist. Even my priest's uniform was slowly regaining its shape, and my hair needed a little more time. The incarnation was being made in the center of the city. A gigantic mass of flesh covered in red blood clots squirmed and emitted divinity. I clapped. It's greater than I thought. Parna looked at the chunk of flesh with pride. Of course. We've been here for 3 years working on this. I started the butcher, not caring whether she was proud or not. Wong, why you? What the hell are you doing? Raising the butcher, I smiled brightly. What do you mean? I'm trying to kill the monster that grew up eating innocent people before it wakes up. There was no way this unexpected monster couldn't be unrelated to the main quest. I decided that it would be better to slow down the progress of the main quest as much as possible, even if it meant killing this monster. All I needed was enough time to acquire more power. Don't do it. You can't do that. I ignored Parna and struck down. As the butcher ground through the incarnation, bright red blood splashed on my face. Poop! Something popped out of the lump of flesh and pierced my shoulder. I stepped back. Blood wouldn't stop flowing from the wound. Damn it. The attack had divinity. Parna clasped her head and screamed. Ah! The monster woke up in an unstable state because you threatened his life. We can't even communicate with him like this. A huge chunk of the flesh cracked open, and something of a barely human shape came out. The skin where a mouth was supposed to be split apart, and a sharp scream echoed through Kelton. It Huyurts. An ominous divinity flowed from the body of the imperfect incarnation born from consuming a city. This was really getting troublesome. My shoulders still hadn't stopped bleeding. Kill! Mother's urgent cry had two meanings. First was the fact that there was one of the 11 holy relics I was looking for in that incarnation's body. Next was her warning to run away immediately because she didn't need such a thing. Thank you for your concern. What? When did I? Cut. Parna's head rolled to the floor. I brushed off the bloody frost steel and harvested her corpse. Divinity. 8,582. Kill. She warned me again to run away immediately. I answered my mother by heating the frost steel sword in a nearby fire and scorching the hole on my shoulder. Today, I will awaken a new power and offer Mother the relic that resides inside that fleshy monster. The bright red flesh monster's forehead cracked, and a single eye popped out and looked straight at me. The monster, finally able to see, opened its mouth again. It hurts. 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 There was no time to answer him. Divinity, which I accepted to my limit, penetrated into the corruption arts and amplified my body's abilities. And I ran away from the square, through the burning buildings of Kelton in search of corpses. Kill. That one's done, and that one was still fine. I approached it quickly, touched his hand, and muttered, Mother, stop being angry and take it. The corpse rotted and spat out 1 point of divinity. Divinity. 8,583. It Huyurts. A horrifying scream approached. The incarnation, returning to its senses, was chasing after me with all its might. This was a chase where the outcome depended on whether I could awaken a new power without being caught. I searched for more corpses. If we leave such a monster alive, surely many people will die, right? Besides, the relic in that monster's body should be harvested when there is such an opportunity. Kill. She rebuked me for being too reckless. I was happy with her concern. Mother, I'll try hard once, and if I don't feel it'll work, I'll run away. So please stop being angry. Now is the time for us to join forces. Kill. Along with the lamentation that I was unbelievable, she told me to do whatever I wanted. I chuckled. I'll show you a great fight. I hope you enjoy watching it from my pocket. New power. It Huyurts. The incarnation screams filled with divinity penetrated deep inside, scratching at my eardrums. Blood dripped from my ears, and I was assailed by a wave of vertigo. A dreadful fear that anyone would feel as a living creature gripped my heart, mixed with the respect that must be paid as a lesser creature. I stumbled back. I wheezed as the smoke and dust choked my lungs. Cough. I couldn't easily stand again as fear took hold of me. Kill. I heard a voice through the dark. My mind, once engulfed in chaos, was reawakened. I forced myself to my feet and started running. Thank you, Mother. I almost died. It Huyurts. The incarnation was a living disaster. The divinity contained in their scream almost devoured me. It was bearable at first, but as I continued to be exposed, it started eating my mind. If the mother of corruption hadn't woken me up, I would have lost the will to get back up from where I'd fallen. More absorbable corpses appeared. I stretched out my hand and shouted, Mother, I'll give them to you. As the bodies rotted, divinity flowed in. Divinity, 9,237. It Huyurts. I shifted my stance, and a blood-red tentacle whirred by. It scratched my shoulder and dug deep into the ground beside me. Hap! I sliced through it with the frost steel blade. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. The amount of divinity contained in its scream increased. My recent counterattack intensified the incarnation's anger, but that wasn't my concern. I sprinted through the ruins of Kelton with the corruption arts pulsing through my veins. OS. Bang. 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 The noises the incarnation made were getting closer and closer. The monster continued to adapt to its own body during our bloody chase, becoming faster, stronger, and sharper. He was reborn as a true predator. On the other hand, I was doing my best from start. Naturally, the distance between me and that monster was narrowing. I clenched my teeth and looked to my destination. Kelton's mansion loomed ahead. There, right there, was a corpse with a much higher chance of giving me divinity than if I searched the rest of the city. It. I lower my head. Two bloody tentacles shot through the air where my head was. Feeling my muscles bursting, I swung and sliced them off. This threw my center of balance off, and I hit the ground rolling. The bright red monster stared at me with a single eye protracted through its split forehead. Was I finally caught? But I had one card saved for this moment. Mother, help, Gaawea. The giant of corruption ripped through space and jumped out, striking the incarnation with its massive fist. Tentacles pierced the giant's hand and ripped apart its fist. Was it not enough even with this? I turned my back with no regrets left and ran screaming. Don't overdo it. I'll be back soon. God. The giant of corruption roared once more and rushed the incarnation. I had to use this golden moment of reprieve that the giant of corruption had earned for me. Breaking through the air, I jumped into the burning lord's mansion. A dead body. I needed a body. At least the corpses of knights or well-trained elite soldiers should do. However, too much time had passed for the corpses at the mansion's entrance to be absorbed. Had I known this would happen, I would have recovered their divinity first. Had I given too much priority to blocking the evil worshippers' plans? Belated regrets flooded inside me, but there was no room to wallow. I sprinted into the shimmering flames. Fail, 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 fail. Each was too late to harvest. Kill. When I turned to look at Mother's cry, I found a corpse in armor leaning against the wall. Mother! The flesh inside the armor rotted and spat out its divinity. 100 divinity, so it was worth 2 fingers. Divinity, 9,337. Starting from where this corpse was, more that I could still harvest appeared one after another. Each one, torn, crushed, and ripped apart, insisted on how ferocious the resistance had been in this place. It was just revenge for a fair price. Blood for blood. That was all I could do for these unfortunate people. Divinity, 9,357. Divinity, 9,467. Divinity, 9,488. Divinity, 9,639. Divinity, 9,897. A little bit more. Finally, I absorbed all the corpses to be found here. Divinity, 9,991. But it wasn't enough. I needed just a bit more. I ran through the mansion. The giant's roars from outside stopped, and I could feel a different presence approach. Kill. Mother's earnest request to just run away resounded in my mind. I gripped the frost steel sword and clenched my teeth. Not yet. Not yet, Mother. I just remembered where another might be. I ran through the collapsing mansion. The wooden pillars fell with a crackling road. Smoke clogged the air. The fire had already consumed almost all of it, and now it sought to consume me as I searched. But finally, I found them, a human worth only 1 finger. The decapitated corpse of Strin Lord of Kelton, awaited me. Boom! The incarnation broke the wall and stepped through. His body, before a mere lump of flesh, now took the shape of a human. Had he evolved this fast? The Lord's body was behind him. Burning corruption divinity seeped across my skin. Just once, and I only needed to dodge its attack once. I shot forward. 7 tentacles reached out to tear me apart. I started the butcher as they approached. Wahong! The metal saw blade screamed. Grasping the handle, I raised it and cut the tendrils down. One for now. I reversed the butcher's trajectory, pushing my arm muscles to the limit. They ruptured, but 2 more tentacles flew through the air. Now, there were 4 tentacles left. I closed my eyes tightly. The maximum I could cut with my abilities was 3. If so, I had no choice but to endure the rest. Swoosh! He shoved tentacles back into the wound in my shoulder I had barely covered up, as if to sneer at me. The other 3 dug into my thigh, waist, and the middle of my stomach, and none hit anything vital. Kill! Mother screamed. Ugh! The unbearable pain leaked out as a groan. The monster was laughing. Yes, he was playing with me. He didn't kill me, even though he could have. It was like a child playing with bugs. But thanks to that, I reached it. Mother! The divinity that erupted from the rotting lord's body permeated me. Divinity. 10,001. I will offer my divinity. Your son longs for it. So give me a new power. There was no answer. Divinity won, but a new power seeped into my body. The monster smiled at me, showing its white teeth. Hurts! I grinned and stretched out my arms, grabbing the careless monster's face. Let's fall. Together. My new power, called the Pit of Corruption, swallowed us. And just like that, we fell. Asterisk. Thud. The shock of the sudden fall shot up my spine. I stood quickly and stepped back. Blood was dripping from my open wounds. I glared at the monster as I seared them with the frost steel sword's still red blade. He was smiling, asking if this was the best I could do. Hurts. I laughed. It hurts. It really hurts. It's painful. It's painful to endure the fire while hiding in pursuit of divinity, and it's painful to run through the town to collect corpses. But do you know what? Wong! The butcher started with a harsh cry. I raised it above my head. The monster sneered at me and tilted his head. Seeing that childlike attitude, I smiled generously. You're going to hurt more than I am now. Bear that carefully in mind, you monster son of a bitch. Boom! The corruption arts renewed, forcing my body to move. My whole body was still creaking, and my arms and legs wouldn't obey me. I was slower than before, but I still ran at him. It hurts. 9 tentacles swung back. He was still growing during all this. I clenched my teeth and swung the butcher, grinding through each of them. The incarnations won. I was colored with astonishment as I struck again. A pair of his arms was sent flying. Without stopping, I shoved the butcher into his side. Wong! Gore rained down. It hurts. I pushed the revving blades deeper in. Are you confused? You must be. Ha ha. Are you wondering why I can cut through all of your attacks, even though it's slower than before? I'll teach you something special. My smile broadened. How does it feel to rot alive? I'm pretty familiar with it. You probably wouldn't know, though. The Pit of Corruption. All living things that entered this gigantic pit started decaying. Even I was no exception to this power's influence. However, I was able to use the corruption arts to prioritize parts not needed for battle and make them rot first. This way, I closed the gap between me and this monster. The monster struggled, trying to push me away. However, his power wasn't enough to stop me. It hurts. 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 Stop. The monster learned a new word. I laughed. Thanks to me, you've learned a couple of words today on your own. I should quit living as a priest and tutor monsters. Ha ha ha. I pulled the butcher back and lifted it. Wah wang. The monster's eyes widened in fear. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. I softly smiled. I don't want to. Clank, 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 clank. The butcher devoured his throat, finally silencing him. I stretched out a rotting hand, pulled out the marble-shaped relic from the broken incarnation's chest, and laughed. Mother, I did it. Kill. It was a strange feeling, both happy and sad. The divinity of dark green corruption flowed from the holy relic into my body and Mother's hand. Once the light died away, I took the hand out of my pocket and checked Mother's condition. The Mother's hand of corruption shone a dark green color. The weight I felt against my palm disappeared, and with it the hand. Mother! I glanced around, trying to calm my panicked heart, to find a young girl. Her hair cascaded down to her waist in a beautiful mix of black and dark green. Her deep black eyes stared back above a sculpted nose. The girl wiggled, her green and black eyes wide open. She moved her lips to speak, but no voice came out. As soon as the girl, now wearing a slight frown, strode up to me and grabbed my hand. A thought appeared in my head. Kill. I calmed my trembling heart at the familiar voice. As expected, your mother. But why are you so young? It's something you should know, not me. But mother, with her lips stuck out in a pout, mother, who had been grumbling in my mind about her current state, tilted her head. Kill. You can't go back to being a hand now. Kill. Yelling at me to wait, the girl returned to her familiar hand form. I took Mother's hand, tucked it in my pocket, and laughed. Mother, it's good to go around as yourself, but how about we just keep going like this? Kill. I was relieved that she said she couldn't keep in that form for long anyway. I was too anxious to take Mother out of my pocket just yet. I still needed a lot of mental preparation. Okay, I understand. I closed my eyes and calmed myself. Divinity 10,001. So, it was already time to awaken another power.